audio, and
And then do you know that, like, I guess you're on Zoom for people that aren't here, but you don't know how many are on there?
they're gonna be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they don't. We don't Zoom anymore, right? Like you can't join the Zoom.
No,
You have to
because
go to
we want
YouTube.
them to.
Right. We want them to be in here. I agree.
But what is that up there then?
That's
just
just
your-
Zoom because we live stream it through Zoom.
Through Zoom.
So we're recording this right now.
Which I think that's pretty cool that Zoom connects to YouTube and then you just hit end meeting and it. Do you have to go into YouTube and do anything after that?
No, unless somebody sets up bad, we have to.
Do a little editing.
So most of John's classes you have to go back. Well, we'll get. I'll wait another couple minutes see if anybody pops in here.
Yeah, it was like, is we being recorded right now?
We probably not yet.
Yeah, you know, when they.
So don't talk bad about John.
So yeah, like when I first got the facilitators, you know, the slides and stuff, and I was, of course, like looking at both of them. Looking
Right.
at them as a
Yeah.
person sitting here.
Right.
And looking at her going on.
That's what I did too. Now I don't even look at the facility or the participation. I just go through the facility.
Yeah.
But I taught plenty of classes.
Yeah.
My usually trouble is I get behind on the slides because I stay on here and then I'm like, oh crap, did I change?
Yeah,
the
right,
slide?
right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Today will probably be pretty quick. We'll just roll right there. I'm gonna go get while we're waiting. I'm gonna go. Real quick. Turn my phone on silent. Yeah, I remember that. We'll be here.
yeah, maybe people are showing out of the lane. Yeah. Out there, for sure. Yeah.
People up on your appointment. Yeah, because we'll be live on YouTube. There she is. I didn't think you were. What, you said yesterday you were going to go today.
You know,
Change your mind.
women have the right to.
Well, we're so glad you did. That's right.
That was, I can't remember what, well, you know, it's nice to be here in person.
It is.
You actually get bored.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll be multitasking.
Yeah, and then halfway paying attention. I'm terrible at watching stuff online and learning.
I've got a lot from it, believe it or not, even online, because I've done 90% of it online. But it always is good to be here.
Yeah.
And it motivates.
It does. 100%. We might have some stragglers rolling in here later. Today's the fun part. Today's just going through offers. How to write them up, make and receive offers.
Give me tips on.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah. The good stuff, right?
I wanna be
When you're
doing
closer to
that
getting paid.
right now, today.
I think we all want to be doing that.
I never saw such indecisiveness and unreasonable and unrealistic.
Oh, I know. Somebody called me the other day about one of my listings. They're going to put one on, and he told me it was a realtor I know pretty well. He told me the price they wanted. I was like, "Good luck getting that." I was like, "That's like 20 grand over what it should be." He's like, "Yeah, I think they're unreasonable." I'm like, "Yeah, they definitely are." And it's in like a 200 price point. Like 20,000 is a lot over price. I mean, it needed to be like 210, and the guys went like almost 230 something. I'm like, "You're gonna waste your time, buddy."
Well, I've got a crazy buyer who put 140,000 under. on
Did he really?
215.
Did it work?
I didn't even round it up.
I know. I usually don't either when it's that low. I'm like, look, this is what he's wanting to offer. Do you want me to put it on paper? I will, but if I don't want to waste your time if this is not going to fly. And just see what they say because I don't want to spend 15 minutes putting an offer together. If it's a super low offer, they're not gonna consider.
100%, and she didn't get it. She got quite angry with me because I said something about they would counter, and she said, why would they count? I want them to accept it.
You're like, well, I'll do the best I
I said,
can,
put
but
yourself in
yeah,
their shoes.
this
I
is
mean,
the s-
40,000 under
Yeah.
is.
that's what I always try to, I use that a lot. Like, put yourself in their shoes if you're selling in this market.
Yeah.
But some people still don't listen or
I
understand.
just,
Yeah.
I wanna beat my head against the wall.
Oh, I
'Cause you can't talk sense into it at all.
How many times in a week do we want, as realtors, want to beat our heads against the wall?
Constantly. Even in our sleep.
I know, right? All right, let's get started. I think we got some people online, according to who I talked to yesterday. But today's the fun stuff. We're gonna get right into it. For today's agenda, we're gonna be talking about writing contracts. We're gonna talk about the offer process, prepare the offer, write the offer, presenting the offer, receive and respond to the offer, kind of go through what are normal timelines and things that we're seeing here in Central Kentucky. We'll do some recap and ahas and then get into our daily success systems, which by this point everybody should kind of have memorized. Let's start off with a little quote here from Bo Bennett. I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not manipulate, a person or persons into a win-win situation. There's that win-win again, kind of showing our culture through these slides. And I think that's a key. I mean, you know, we always want it to be a win-win. I don't go into any negotiations trying to make sure I'm the only one that wins or my client only wins. You got to work, you know, hopefully you're going to work with that cross agent multiple times. So you want to have a good relationship with them. Go in like, hey, we all want to get to the same conclusion here. Like, let's make this work. So I think that's definitely the best way to go about it. Let's see, let's get right into the offer process. So, and I know a lot of you have already done this, but we'll just this will be a recap for a lot. So your buyer's going to make an offer. You may get lucky and you roll right down into negotiations, or the seller can respond, and the seller can respond in 3 ways pretty much: counter the offer, they can accept the offer, or they can reject the offer. If they counter their offer, you'll roll right down to negotiations. If they accept the offer, boom, you're lucky, you're rolling right into contract to close process. If they reject the offer, the buyer agent contacts the listing agent to learn more, which, you know, you're obviously going to do that. And most of the time, the listing agent is going to tell you why they're rejecting the offer. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's probably price related, but it may be something else. It could be a timeline you have in there. It could be inspections, any kind of thing. So if they reject the offer, definitely find out why, because your buyer is going to want to know why did they reject it. One thing I will say is, if they reject it, that doesn't mean you're done. I mean, you can still bring another offer back to them. But definitely find out why you're getting the rejection. Most of the time, they will share that right off the bat, anyways. One thing I do want to say is, as you're going through the negotiations, emotions run hot for most buyers and sellers. You know, this is an emotional thing, selling their biggest asset, most likely. Our job as professionals is to remain under control and non-emotional. It's not our purchase. It's not our sale. We don't get emotional. We serve them by being calm, reassuring, and in control. And most importantly, by communicating everything to our clients in a timely manner. You don't want to hear they're countering your offer and then you wait 4 or 5 hours, because you know that your client's sitting there on pins and needles waiting to hear. So it's all about a timely manner. I like to get these things done as quick as possible. Obviously, you're going to be at the mercy of the seller in most instances, but I try to have quick timelines on my offers unless I'm told by the other agent they need more time. But the main thing I want to reiterate is, yeah, like I said, you want to stay calm and don't take the emotions out of it, because this isn't your purchase, but you're going to be dealing with a party that's probably going to be pretty emotional. So you've got to be that calm, reassuring voice that leads them to where they need to be. Remember to put all your offers into opportunities in command, which I know we've talked about multiple times. That's how our office will see everything and you can track everything. It's really easy through Dotloop, and if you haven't taken a class on command, You can link your command straight to your loop, and that way, anytime you're on your command on the app or on the website, you can pull up any of your documents that you're needing. They'll automatically plug into the opportunities.
Like, don't loop feed into the opportunity,
Yep. So you create the opportunity in command. So
okay,
you'll have to put it, and we talked about at the meeting a little bit yesterday how to do that. And then you'll start the opportunity, and then you hit. There's a button that says link to dot loop, and you click that, and it'll create the loop for you in dot loop.
I'm getting ready to input several.
Yep. Yep. So and before I learned how to do that, I was having to like download PDFs and then upload it. Yeah. So now as long as you start starting an opportunity first and then link it, it'll create the loop for you.
Okay.
And then all you got to do is plug and play. Like it'll say buyer's rep agreement. You click the little drop down menu, and then you'll scroll through the loops and find it. And
That's
Okay.
worth the drive up your chest.
yeah, it's they made it really easy for us for sure. So make sure you start that loop first, or to start the opportunity first, and then it will create the loop for you. Because I don't think that has the capabilities to, once you've created a loop, you
To go
can't
back.
link it then. I don't think. I think you have to start it in the loop first. If you happen to do it that way, you'll have to do the old school way of downloading PDFs and upload them, but into opportunities. But either way, you'll still get paid. You'll still get paid.
Will, right,
Yeah.
and so I'm gonna backtrack onto you, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you've already got some stuff started and signed,
And the June.
yeah, those I don't think you can link unless they changed it. I don't know how, but that would be a Tristan question. He may know.
No,
But
that's okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
accustomed to that, but moving forward, that'll be such a time saver.
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, nowadays with how we're supposed to get a buyer rep agreement signed before we're showing houses, anyways, you should have the opportunity already created, because then you can get the buyer rep signed instead of starting it in Dolly.
Sometimes it's hand signed.
I know. All right, let's see. Let's get into preparing an offer. So remember, your relationship with the listing agent began on the first contact. If you've never worked with them before, this was likely when you made the appointment. When you contact them prior to writing the offer, you are building a positive working relationship. Be courteous and professional in your inquiries. It's important to ask questions of the listing agent to discover what's important to the seller, so that the buyer's agent can write the offer which meets their needs. Find out their time frame, their motivation for moving, any details you can get out of them. And a lot of times just asking questions, then just sitting back and listening, they'll share more than maybe you were even asking to find out. Ask how the agent would like to receive the offer. Would they like it via dot loop, which is what most will want, but you'll have some who are still kind of a little old school that want it in email. So, take that extra step to find out how they would like it. That way you're doing your best to accommodate them. All as one document, or would they like separate documents? Remember, by making the listing agent's life easier and making it clear you're an easy person to work with, you make your client's offer look better. One thing I will say on that as well is we've actually won some multiple offer situations just because of my relationship with that other agent. I'm sure you have as well. Some of this has been around for a while. So I almost always try to treat that other one with the utmost respect, because you just never know. And it does, and that's a plus that you can use in your buyer presentations when you're meeting with them, is like, I've been around for a while. I've worked with a lot of agents, and I've had experiences in the past that some will want to go with your offer, even if it's the same as somebody else, just because they want to work with me because we've had good deals in the past. So treat that other agent with the utmost respect, and find out as much information as you can before you're spending the offer, just so you're doing the best for your client. That's going to make your offer look better. But kind of going through this list here to prepare to write an offer, we talked a little bit about it, but you're going to ensure the property's still available, obviously. Build rapport. Inquire about activity, inquire about other offers on the property status. Why did they fall through? All that I do pretty much before I show the property or as I'm showing the property. Ask questions about seller motivations and needs. So at this point, you can tell you're probably going to be writing an offer. I would at that point reach out and say, hey, my buyers are interested. And then you're like, hey, have you had any offers? Like, what would if my buyers were going to make an offer, what's something that is important to your people? Is it price, or do they have, like we've talked about, certain time frames they would prefer? Ask the listing agent how they want to receive the offer. We talked about that. Obtain the buyer's pre-approval. Review MLS and tax records. Pre-approval, I think, is key, especially in this market. I don't submit an offer without a pre-approval. and you're dead in the water if you're submitting an offer with no pre-approval and it's multiple offers. You're doing a disservice to your buyer if you're writing an offer and you still have to wait for them to get pre-approved.
It's a service to yourself.
You are. You're wasting. Sometimes we've all done it. We've learned the hard. I've learned the hard way. You've shown property before, not knowing if somebody was pre-approved, and then they couldn't get pre-approved. So make sure they get pre-approved. Make sure you've got a letter from a lender, even if it's a pre-qual letter. And make sure it's updated too. I'll say some of them are a little dated. Some of them they'll put price specific on there, so it may have a price of a previous offering throughout. Make sure you have a good relationship with that lender and it's updated so it's clear. Plus, you're going to want that letter so you know what loan are they getting, conventional, FHA, VA, so you can plug that into the offer. Review MLS and tax records. I always do that just to double check, make sure the seller is who it says it is on the tax record. MLS, you're going to want to check that just so you know what they're saying stays and what doesn't, so you can make the best offer for your client. Produce a CMA, comparative market analysis. So I will do that as well. I mean, if we're making an offer, I don't think you're representing your buyer to the best of your abilities if you don't know if it's listed correctly or at the right price. Now, if you're in a hot market like we've been in, sometimes that don't matter. If you want it, you're gonna have to overpay maybe more than what we think it's worth. But I almost always do a CMA before making an offer just so I can have the peace of mind to tell my clients, hey, I think it's listed correctly, or I think it's about 10 or 15 grand over this price, so we can make the best offer for that. Last thing you want to do is get it under contract and then have an appraisal issue. So I'll always do a CMA.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What is your favorite CMA to use, especially when you're in a time crunch?
Yeah.
Buyers gotta get back to work.
So I'm old school. I just do my own on MLS. I do my own search and I pull up the neighborhood. So I know you can use RPR, which a lot of people do, and it is a whole lot quicker. I trust myself better, so I do it myself. But I've started using RPR more, and so I just need to learn it a little better. But it is a lot faster.
You and I both. And the new RPR app, I know, is marketing some really good, quick.
They are. So they have a quick CMA that'll pop up there. And I think that's like you said, if you're in a time crunch and you got to get an offer in, at least you're doing that.
Your gut tells you,
right,
it's probably
exactly. You're not too far off, right? Yeah. But if I have time, I like to do RPR real quick to see what it says, and then do my own, and just go through them as pull up the neighborhood or whatever and compare it that way.
We fully concur. Thank you very much.
Yep. And then I will say, have you done Dustin's CMA class?
I have.
He's really good.
He's really good.
He does a great. I learned a lot from him in the classes I've gone.
I learned a lot from Dustin in a couple of classes that I've taken with him.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. It's probably one of my favorite classes we teach here, or he teaches here. All right, let's see. Let's get into writing the offer. So now that we've gone over preparing to write your offer, you've got all the information. You've talked to the listing agent. We know what we need to offer to make our offer stand above anybody else's or look attractive to them. Let's go through the checklist of actually writing your offer, and then we'll go through an actual offer to be sure that we know how to explain it to our buyer clients. Let's see. So writing an offer, you're going to have first, you got your price and your terms. You're going to obviously need to know those. Terms could be like you need to know what kind of loan they're going to get. You need to know when do they want to close. Typical is you would say around 30 days here. That's about the time it takes for a mortgage, but maybe that doesn't work for your buyer, or maybe that doesn't work for the seller when you asked. So find out the terms. Are they having an inspection? Are they not? How many days are they going to do for inspection? I would say you're probably seeing around 10 to 15 days is your typical on most Central Kentucky due diligence periods. So just make sure you've got all your price and your terms. You've talked to your buyer. Seller's disclosure, make sure you download the seller's disclosure. They've reviewed that. I always share that before looking at a property. That way they have it, or with looking at a property. But make sure you've got that downloaded and your buyers sign off on that. Any conveyances, what stays and what doesn't. Earnest money, make sure you've talked to your buyer about earnest money. That's going to be, there's really not a typical, in my opinion, on earnest money. And that's going to be dependent on how early is it on the market? How long is it set? Is it multiple offers? I would say the lowest you can get away with sometimes is like 500 in a very, very low $100,000 to $150,000 price range. But anything over 200,000, I'm always looking for at least $2,000 in earnest money, just so the seller knows you're committed and you're making a strong offer. Obviously, the more earnest money you put down, the stronger your offer looks. and talk to your buyers about that. Are you seeing that too? Is that roughly what you do?
Yeah, I try to do minimum 1%.
Yeah, that's what I try to. I mean, I've had some who like, money's tight and they can't really get there and we'll go a little lower, but yeah, I always try to get that 1%.
VA loans sometimes are 100%
Yeah.
financing is, tough to get it out
It
of. They
is.
wanna do 100.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Shoot, it's even tough just getting VA loans through now. Some of these sellers don't even want them. But it slowed down a little bit. Hopefully that's good news for some of the VA buyers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. VA, so due diligence inspection period. We've got a great contract class. I'm sure you would go over a lot of that in more detail about what due diligence is and the inspection period, but just make sure you have your timeline set in there. Time for seller acceptance. It depends. I try to get things done as soon as possible. So as long as the seller hasn't told me they need more time, I'm trying to get this done that day. So if we're making an offer today, let's say I make an offer pre-lunch, I'm usually putting like a 7 p.m. deadline just because I don't want this lingering on and somebody else having the chance to look at it. And then I'm trying to push that envelope with them and see if they can get it done in time. But I always preface it when I send it, you like, hey, I put a 7 p.m. deadline. Just let me know if that timeline doesn't work and we can edit that. But I'm always pushing for let's get this done as quick as possible. Financing terms, you'll get that from the lender, so make sure you know what they're getting, put that in the offer. You've got your pre-approval letter. Closing date, we'll put that in there. If there's a home warranty involved, we can write that in there. Any repair limits, make sure you talk to pre-warned your buyers about what we can do with repairs. So if you're having a home inspection and you're going to negotiate any repairs, just explain how that process will work. Obviously you won't get there until you've had your inspections and you know if any repairs are needed. Special clauses. So there's special clauses that you get through our board that they have with the contract as far as like any contingencies or anything you may need to add in there. And then if there's any addendums, you'll have that added to the back of the loop as well. I like to order mine. I think everybody will have a certain preference of how they send their documents, but I'm kind of one of those that like the first document I send, and I'll send it in a group, but the top one would be their pre-approval letter, then the offer, copy of the earnest money check, the disclosure, and then maybe any addendums or anything like that. Now, if there's a contingency or something, I'll probably plug that in right after the offer. But that's kind of how I typically order mine when I send it. Just I feel like that's how I would want to look at it if somebody sends it to me.
Separate. I know it's.
Oh, I know. So I do that. So I usually send the stuff that the listing agent nothing needs signed by the seller. I usually send as one just for them to review,
Right.
and then I send the offer by itself. And unless there's an addendum, I'll attach it sometimes.
I've got a ton in the last year that's
All
in one.
Just like 2024.
So to separate it myself to be able to, get into the lenders. And
Right. Yeah.
that's
That's true.
frustrating. So you're costing the other agent extra work.
True. Now, when you share it through Dotloop, if you attach them all, it still should come in the loop as separate attachments.
I don't tell. I mean, they must be scanning them.
Then they must be.
They
I was
must
gonna
be
say
scanning a packet together.
because what I'll do is I'll just click on. I mean, they're all separate in my loop, and then I'll click on. Let's say I send the disclosure and all those. Well, they'll show as separate links on their side. So they must be. Yeah, you must be getting something where they're scanning it all.
They're all Dotloop signed.
Yeah.
They're all.
Yeah, that is frustrating.
Multiple documents.
Yeah, that is
I've got
frustrating.
two
And then you're scrolling like, where is the? Yeah.
Page 22.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, that's where we're talking about make it as easy as possible on the other party.
Absolutely.
So talking through the offer. Let's see. Right. I will say so they hint in here about I don't think we're seeing a ton of it now. We were seeing this in the hot markets right after COVID. So they're hinting at they're not big fans of submitting love letters with your offer. I know we saw a lot of that probably around 2021, 2022, because people were in a lot of multiple offers and they were trying to get there. And I get where it was coming from. You're trying to stand out and make your offer look better, but kind of submitting people would do, I don't know, Facebook stalking on the seller and try to hint on some things that why our offer is better and make you look good. But I think I try to avoid those. I think I've done those once in my 15 years of business because they absolutely were adamant about doing it. But you just open yourself up to lawsuits or
It's massive.
yeah. Open yourself up to trouble that you don't really need
It's
to get
a big
into.
no-no.
Yeah, it
My
is.
husband
I agree.
and my children love your area.
Right. Oh, they do all of that. I know. I mean, I even had one that wanted to submit like we're a Christian family and I'm like, well, I'm not submitting that. Like, just not happening.
Yeah, I refuse.
Yeah, like I said, we talked about yesterday, no offer or deal is worth your license. So don't open yourself up to lawsuits or any legal troubles that you can avoid. Because you probably will get that at some point. You'll have a client say, "Should I submit a letter?" And you just got to tell me, like, let you know, I don't think we need to. Let's just make sure. Because and you never know, like something you put in that letter that you think will look great could turn that
Really
stuff
the wrong
off.
way.
It can do the opposite. Yeah, it can totally do the opposite. So, I think that's a big no. I don't do those. Let's see where are we at. Talk through the offer. Okay, I'm gonna walk you through the entire contract as if you were my client, making sure that I'm setting the proper expectations with you so that you get out of the contract I've given you just like we would our clients. We will start at the beginning and work our way through it. Shoot, I think I need to have. Did she have that? And again, I'm gonna go quick on this. How do you?
It's very similar to my contract class.
I know, right? That's why I said I'm gonna go quick because
Yeah.
you can do it in your contract class.
You know, cool, though, listening, you're explaining.
How I do it, yeah.
Just say I did a second on her. I'm pretty good at that, but it never hurts to hone your skills.
Sure.
And
Well, and I pick up things just from how people explain certain stuff.
Look, every
Yeah.
thing is new. I did get burned having to do a D-box on a septic tank.
Oh, really?
I still my client. He said he didn't read that. I didn't explain it or something and not do. One of those people, so I put in there. It is imperative that you, whenever I send out Luke, that you'll tell them. Can we talk? Can we talk? Let's discuss this. They're
Yeah.
confused.
Hey, how are you?
And then all of a sudden they sign all the documents within 30 seconds. So I put in there, it's imperative that you review each page, read thoroughly, have full knowledge of what you're signing. Yeah.
Let's see.
100%. And then if anybody says, well, you didn't explain it to me, here's your text that says you didn't have time and that you reviewed. it.
Right.
So it's not my fault. It's, yeah.
Let's make sure I got the new one here.
Can you tell me, I'm sorry, what it was, regarding something, or like, I mean, you don't
He said-
go into the whole thing, but like.
He said that I didn't inform him.
And
And they
want
That it had a septic tank?
No, that there was, that he had the opportunity for a septic inspection.
Oh,
And
inspection.
I didn't put it in writing, I talked to him about it on the phone. So whenever they got to the home, the septic tank didn't work correctly and the distribution box had to be replaced.
It was like you didn't, wasn't clear on knowing that.
Well, the bad thing is he couldn't come back on you because the contract says, you know, he could have any and all inspections
It
he
was-
wanted,
It
so.
was a double deal on about 6 deals in with him, so at that
Oh.
time I had a 25% off referral.
Yeah,
I just had a little.
sometimes you just gotta do what you
I
think's
took
the
the
right.
money and
Yeah,
fixed it
I would have to. I've done that, but we've all done that.
and by gosh.
Even if you don't think you did anything wrong, it's like, it makes sense, let's just make him happy, you know what I mean?
Well, since that one transaction, I think I've done 4 more.
So, it was worth it, yeah.
Still it has.
Right.
It was still moving.
I love it.
Suck it up.
Alright, let's just swing through this real quick.
And you may not, this may not have a thing.
So this won't be on here, we're gonna go through the I'm Jesse, by the way.
I'm Carol.
Nice to meet you, Carol. Absolutely, thanks for coming. We're just going through, so I think, what page are you on? We're on present the offer.
About 17.8.
Yeah.
17.8. I'm writing an offer checklist and he's gonna run through.
Yeah.
Excuse me, writing the offer. Alright.
And now what I will say is, so and I know you've probably hinted on it or some have in previous ignites. I usually try to send a copy of this contract to them to review via email or through Dotloop once like I have them sign the buyer's rep and just say, here's the contract. It's like 13 pages. So that way we're not spending a bunch of time going over all this when it's time to write the actual offer. If you want to read through it, you can. I'll summarize it with you at the time, but if you want to read it in detail, I'll try to send it to them just because it saves them time. Because you never know, you'll have some people who just fully trust you and don't read a single thing on it. They're like, how much are we offering? What's this? You tell them, they just click on it. I mean, honestly, that's probably like 7 out of 10 people. But you will have some that are like, will actually read through it and want to read through it. So I try to send it to them just so they have the option of going through it if they want ahead of time. But it's really easy. I know it's a lot of pages, especially from some of us old school ones who are used to the 5, but they've really protected the agent in this new offer. But it's pretty self-explanatory. Contract, you're gonna put a contract number up here. This is kind of up to you what you want to do. My old school way and how I was taught was I put my MLS number behind the house number. So if I'm making an offer on 100 Main Street, I'll put 100 and then 62603, which is my MLS number. And then that will stay on the top of every page. So that way they know they're connected. I've seen some people just put their MLS number. I've seen some people come up with their own random number. So it's really up to you what you want to do. But you just want to make sure you have contract number on there so they know all the pages stay together. Buyer's names, buyer's agent's contact info, phone and email, broker's name, license number, office number. You're gonna fill all that out. And then obviously if you're on the seller side, here's your same information over there.
Can I?
Absolutely, yeah.
That is one thing that I am missing.
What do you
I
need?
keep
The numbers?
Yes.
So I keep them saved in my contact.
For
And
KW, I know,
Yeah.
and so I am missing it, let me pull it up.
then I keep these and Bo's broker numbers saved in my, so that way I know. I have
Right,
Bo's memorized. I don't have yours memorized yet.
I don't have yours, the
Yeah,
only yours,
speed doc,
Yeah.
what is yours? Your,
859
uh-huh,
429.
okay, this is your phone.
No. She wants your license number for like when you have to put it on the
yes.
contract.
265-811 or 295-811. Sorry, because it changed from sales associate. to broker.
Oh, that's right.
And we're office number, what is our
The
office?
phone number?
No, just our office, what is the number?
Okay, another thing about this is I've had people put Bo's
Yeah.
license number, and
Uh-huh.
that's why.
And so that's what I typically do in an offer is I put Bo's because he's the principal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we do have an office license number. I mean, is that what you want?
Okay, like the
You want both?
office number, meaning
Oh, both?
with, no, not the phone number,
Location number.
with L-bar.
Oh.
The office.
Oh.
Oh, office ID.
Yeah.
Office ID 32.
Yeah.
Is 132,
1232.
1232, thank you.
But you don't have to put that on the offer.
Yeah, it's no longer on the offer. Remember what it used to be on the
Yeah,
bottom?
it's not on the new one.
That's right.
Yeah. So all you have to have on here is your name and then your license number. And then the broker's name and the broker's license number.
Okay.
And I usually do Bo because he's the principal.
Yeah, so put just KW Commonwealth where he's
Right
at
here.
right now, office.
So is that what you would recommend? Just do
Yeah, exactly.
KW, so don't do
KW
Bo?
Commonwealth.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've done Keller Williams Commonwealth
Sure.
before, and
Yeah.
like sitting with Bo's,
Yeah.
put KW Commonwealth.
And then you put the license number for the office? Or do you put both?
It's funny because I had that plugged in to do my contracts class,
Mhm.
and then I started seeing everybody just puts Bo's
Yeah.
and. I
So
just
that's what
didn't
I
say
did
the
put
knowledge
there.
broker.
Cause it says buyer's brokerage, but is it, well, I guess it says brokerage. I don't know. I think you're fine doing,
Wrong.
so I think you're fine doing either way. So you can do our office brokerage number or both, and I think you'd be fine.
So we do need to use both,
You could, either one, I
You
think.
already got one.
or both.
Bo's.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause he's
Not
principal.
Do you have those?
I do, I think I've got.
212174.
Yep, you gotta memorize it too.
Yeah, because I can remember I wrote it off my back and I didn't have it. And I was looking it up, then I did.
But it is weird,
Yeah,
when I got my brokers and my license number changed.
I know. You're like,
And I was
yeah.
like, oh no, now I have to look at the
Right.
replay like, what?
Yeah. Absolutely, any questions, anytime.
There yet, I'm just started my classes.
Cool.
Is there training once you finish your? It kind of tells you these things.
Oh, yeah. So that's what this Ignite is. It goes through how to get business and stuff, but yeah, like she teaches a contract class.
Okay,
And goes through basically what I'm getting ready to do on this. She teaches one more in detail.
okay.
And
Yeah.
then Bluegrass Realtors requiring you to take follow-up classes.
Correct.
A post licensing
Mhm.
that you'll have to take to get,
Where is it easy?
not continuing education, it is
Required.
post licensing.
Yeah, just in your.
It's for new agents. You have so much time to do it.
Okay.
And then plus you'll get into if as long as you come here, you'll get into coaching with Beth and she will help you through all this. Yeah.
So I've noticed that everybody seems to know all this stuff that we.
Well, hey, we didn't know it when we started. We just learned through fire, like baptism by fire. Yeah,
You'll learn as you go.
absolutely.
And the best thing you can do is to ask
Yep.
anybody, including any agent.
And that's why I would recommend coming here. Like everybody in here will share with you. It doesn't matter. You can
It's
roll
one
up
of the
top.
best
Yeah.
brokerages, like, anytime during the week, there are classes going.
We're not a secret broker. Like you can literally stop anybody in the hall, and I would promise you, almost every one of them would answer or help you do whatever.
Well,
you
I
need
think
to do.
she's united then ever get on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I teach Ignite, and I still go to Ignite classes with people.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if you're a new agent, seasoned agent, the best agent. You can always learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got us off track.
No,
You know.
it's fine. Hey, we're an open book here, so you just shout anytime. That's what I told you. I talked yesterday. I'm like, just stop me whenever. The best thing will be as a new agent is you'll be in PC coaching with Beth, and she works with the newer agents to get them acclimated and learn what they need to do to do all the docs and get all that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot, but it's
Good to know.
we've got a system that'll help get you prepared.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the easy part, kind of up here. You put in all the contact information. Well, we thought it was easy, but then we kind of argued about it. Then you get down here to line 14. This is where you put the address in, and then you put the county. I do go ahead and put the PVA number in as well, and the MLS number, because now the MLS makes it easy that everybody has to have the PVA number in there. You don't have to go look it up. Hopefully you have done that already, because like I said, when you're pre-doing this, I always go to the PVA to make sure the name is who the seller is on the PVA. Because if it's something different, you can ask the listing agent, like, why are the tax records showing something different than your seller on the disclosure or whatever? You can find out. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Here's where you're going to check anything and everything that will stay. So if it's unchecked, that means it may not stay. The sellers can take it. So anything you see through here, you're going to check. Most of the time, it's always going to be like light fixtures, any ceiling fans, if there's gas logs. If your buyer wants the window treatments to stay, I always do all screens typically. Although I will kind of give a little hint on this. I've heard that this gets a little iffy. Somebody checked all screens here thinking window screens, which is what most people think. And then the buyer got mad and sued the buyer's agent because the seller took the TV screens. And they thought all screens meant TV screens. And you can sue for anything. People are crazy. So that's up to you if you what you want to do there. I think most window screens stay anyway, so I've kind of veered towards not clicking that. Just because I don't want to have a buyer. Yeah, I don't want to have a buyer say, "Well, I thought all screens meant TV screens." Or you can, I guess, if you trust your buyers, you can be like, "Look, this is not TV screens. This is window screens and door screens." I guess you can reiterate that, but that did happen.
But if there's one screen missing, you're gonna be responsible.
Right. I know.
TV screen.
So that's an iffy one. I kind of usually just don't leave it checked.
Thank you for that.
Yep,
Abstract up.
Absolutely. Shades, mailboxes, bathroom mirrors. You're usually going to check that. Any towel rods. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything kind of different. Water softener. Yeah, all this is pretty self-explanatory. All remotes and keys. You're going to check that typically. So just anything you know that's there, you'll check there. And if you don't know, ask the listing agent. Does it have an invisible fence? Appliances. So here's where you're going to check any appliances that will stay and remain. And then you can edit here and add anything. So if they have a refrigerator in the basement or a second refrigerator in the garage and your buyer wants that to stay, you just click edit here and I just write in basement refrigerator. You might have to do disposal. I wish they would have put disposal on me because that's pretty common, but you'll have to write disposal in because it's not a check mark. Anything they want to be removed, any fixtures they want to be removed, like I've seen some like playset put in here because the buyer did not want the playset and they wanted it gone. Trampoline, stuff like that, or if there's something in the house that maybe is included in the listing MLS that they don't want it. So write anything in there that they want removed.
Unless you can't, it's the lender.
Well, not right.
It's personal.
True.
That's it. I always do the existing appliances as seen.
Yeah, and that's a good practice. I agree. As seen, and I've seen some people put on such and such date. Yeah, that I showed.
Because
Yeah.
your fridge, so
get replaced with an old fridge. Yeah, I've personally, knock on wood, never had that happen to me, but that I have seen that in a lot of offers, and it does make sense. So basically, what we're hearing is if you can cover your butt a little bit by stating a few extra things, it's probably good practice. I might actually start doing that. It's probably smart to do that. Let's see where we at. Propane tanks. So you'll see this some if they've got like a propane tank for a gas fireplace, or if they're maybe out in the country and they use propane for their heat. You'll click here if it's going to be stayed or removed, or if it's leased. So like some people won't own it, they'll just rent it through AmeriGas or whoever. You'll click whatever that is here. Purchase price, you're going to put in there whatever you're offering. Escrow, however, like we talked about escrow, however much you're going to do. Typically we try for about 1%, but you'll put in how much is the escrow, who's holding it. So that would be typically it's going to be held by the buyer's agent's office. So you would put KWC or Keller Williams Commonwealth. Any seller paid closing costs. So if you've talked to the lender and they need or want some of their closing costs to be covered, this is where you're going to put that in here. And what that means is, just so you can explain that to your buyers, because some buyers, I think, struggle to understand it. If you're offering $300,000 on a house, but then they're asking for $5,000 in closing cost, the buyer's not offering $300,000 to the seller. They're offering $295 because they're asking for a price of $300 and the seller to pay $5,000 in closing costs. So the seller is only netting $295. So I try to make sure my buyers are aware of, like, especially if it's a newer listing and they may not negotiate a whole lot. Make sure your buyers understand you're not offering them full price at $300 if we're asking for closing costs. But I think that's becoming a little bit more common. It was very common about 10 years ago, and then it kind of got less common in the hot market when people were fighting over properties. But I think you're starting to see more and more buyers getting some closing costs paid from sellers.
Since we have the in-house Viridian title.
Yep.
Have you seen, like, because I've seen the Viridian title in
Holding the escrow?
number?
I
Or
haven't
is
seen
the
it yet.
same- You know what I'm saying? Or is it the same, just put
Yeah.
KW Commonwealth and then if it. ends
That's
up being
honestly
held by
that's a good
Viridian.
question. I think that would be what Bo would prefer. Being that he's the principal broker, does he want us to? Are we fine to do both, or would you rather us put Meridian?
Yeah.
But the problem is, what if? I guess you would have to know you're using Meridian. Like, what if she has a deal that they're not going to use Meridian, so it'd be held by Keller Williams? I think you should just stick with Keller Williams
I think so,
because it
too,
goes into
because
our
that
escrow
would be-
account.
Yeah, that would be safer,
Right.
even if it does end up
Then it's
being
no issue.
Viridian,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I agree. So that's that, and then let's see, property address that should autofill. If it doesn't, I think you'll fill it out once here, and then it'll autofill to the other pages.
You
Typically,
only get one chance.
I know. Contingencies. So here's where you're gonna put. So if they're getting a loan, it would be a financing contingency. You would just click that. If they're not getting a loan, but they want an appraisal, you could click here that it's contingent upon an appraisal. And then any other. So if they have a contingency on a house selling, you would click other, and then there's a contingency form you fill out for that. And then you would write that in here. So I usually will just put house to sell contingency here, and then or put form 1, whatever that form number is on the contingency form, you'll put that here, and then I put house to sell contingency form. I just write that in there. But if there is no contingencies, obviously you'd leave that unchecked. If this contract's contingent on financing, so if you checked yes up here, you're going to put their terms that you got from the lender, whatever loan it is, whatever interest rate that it's not going to exceed. I do usually put a little buffer in there. So if he says the rate should be 6, I sometimes will just put 6.25 because we never know what they're actually going to lock. Now you don't want to put 8 or something like that, because if they skyrocket it up, you want your buyers to be able to get out. But I usually put a little bit of buffer in there just to make sure my buyers are covered. Loan amount not to exceed. So like I said, you're going to get all this depending on how much they're putting down and what the loan's going to be from the lender. If the contract's contingent upon financing or appraisal, the buyer shall have the appraisal ordered no later than, and so you're going to put a timeline here. I typically put roughly the same deadline that I have for that in my due diligence. I prefer my buyers to be able to have their home inspections before they have to pay for an appraisal, because if they back out, then they're not out the money for an appraisal, which is $500, $600 nowadays. Sometimes you can't get away with that, especially if it's a multiple offer situation. They may want sooner timelines, and you just have to make sure your buyer's fine with that. But like, hey, they want us to go ahead and get these appraisals done and ordered. But I usually try for about 14 days here on due diligence, and I'll put 14 days here. And I'll try to get our inspection scheduled the next week or within 7 days. And then that way we'll know within about 7 days, are we going to be able to work out these inspections? And then if so, I still have time to get that appraisal order to be compliant with the contract. But this was new that was added from our previous one. So you kind of have to make sure your lender's aware of it. I did have one where the lender did not get it ordered in time. It didn't cause any problems, but I was like, ooh, that could have been a problem. And I'm like, we as agency to make sure we're aware that we make sure the lender orders the appraisal in the right time. Because they get the contract, but we can't trust all lenders. They're not all the same.
Yeah, that threw me off like a bit, because we're so used to
Yeah.
the other contract.
Right. When there wasn't a
But that
time
one,
for ordering.
I was like, well, usually whoever you're working with can get an appraisal pretty quick.
But, yeah.
And then I was like, no, you want to, they usually say like 48 hours
Right.
after the inspection period.
Yeah,
Cause you don't.
that's what I
order the
typically do.
appraisal,
Right,
Yeah.
And I will say the key is that they've ordered it, so it doesn't have to be done within 14 days. So as long as the lender has proof that they ordered it and the buyer paid for it or gave them their credit card, then you're good.
I had a point recently, I have to tell the story, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because there was 2 months closing, had to close first, it's got to close first March, keep February pay,
Right.
okay, start date. And so he put 10 days for the inspection and the appraisal didn't occur. And I texted him, he said, I'll alert you whenever the appraisal scheduled, and I said, the appraisal will call you. So you were supposed to have it done, he said, oh, that's just standard on the contract. I sent him a screenshot, and said, no, you put it in there.
Yeah.
You wrote it in.
Yeah.
And he kept going back and forth, trying to make it look like it's cool, we got into a little bit of a heated argument over, and I said, no, you were supposed to have it done, so then he had the lender involved, because the lender thought I was an idiot. And I said, it's not standard, long story short, is that one right there is confusing, and he's a seasoned realtor.
Yeah.
And we didn't argue over it, it was a bit of a debate on,
Right.
I'm not
If it was
wrong,
ordered in time.
I'm not wrong, your due diligence is almost over, and I haven't heard from the appraiser.
Right.
And see someone else, you could also say, it's been ordered.
Right.
They just haven't got back to me,
And
and
that's
what
okay.
day this
Yeah.
week or what.
Right.
That's okay, that's all I was checking on.
Right.
In order.
Yeah.
It wasn't ordered for 3 weeks, till 3 weeks later.
Yeah. It
He
should
went
have
ahead and extended on that, and it's posted.
been. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that one has gotten even seasoned realtors.
It has. Yeah. Well, and a lot of them just aren't used to it, so it's new to them. And yeah, I agree.
It was standard.
Yeah. Okay, so and then due diligence. So you're gonna put in how much time they have their due diligence. If they're taking it as is and waiving it, you're gonna click right here, meaning that they're locked in, they're taking it, there is no due diligence period. And then they'll initial that as well. But your due diligence is just they have, I know she'll go in more detail, but they have, in my opinion, they have this entire time to back out. They literally can back out for any reason, if for no reason. They can just change their mind.
And get their earnest money.
Get their earnest money back and everything. What I try to tell my buyers is once this last day is, if this is the 10th day and that expires, you're pretty much locked into buying this house. And if you don't, you're probably going to lose your earnest money. That's how I typically explain it to them. Even if we haven't got the appraisal back and anything like that. I mean, obviously if it didn't appraise and you have the appraisal contingency, they would get their money back if you couldn't work it out. But usually this due diligence period is your only time to be able to get out scot-free, get your money back. That's how I kind of explain it.
Okay.
So we need to know do we feel really good on that by the end of this time that you're happy with this house and you're gonna buy it and that your financing looks pretty locked in and good to go.
Because right now is your opportunity to jump ship.
Correct. Right.
May I ask a question, because I hate this, I don't like this one,
Yeah,
just because it confuses buyers.
it does.
And it confuses the sellers as well, it even confuses lenders, they see so many different ones.
They did.
But with that said, on the due diligence period, Jesse. That say we put 10 days, the buyers will have 10 days, this is one that I ran into last week. They've got 10 days and then we have the 10 days to respond. They sent us literally the repair list on the 8th day, and we only had 2 days.
2 days, right. It has to be worked out within those days. So if
So
you,
there is no place there, like the old.
the old one said you
like
had 48
days.
hours to respond. Yeah, there is none of that. So that's a drop dead day.
That's a
Drop
drop.
dead day.
'Cause
So
I-
if they get it to you with 2 days left and you need to maybe get contractors out, you have to just
You gotta get
renegotiate.
extended.
So you have to sign an addendum that says we're extending the due diligence because we need to get some contractors out here to see how much stuff's gonna be.
They didn't play that game with them.
Yeah.
We got everything.
That's the bad thing. There is, but yes, that's a drop dead date. So unfortunately, you're on a time crunch, or you get it extended. Yeah, and I make sure that like especially if you have the seller on that side and you're on the time crunch, I'm like, well, we'd love to work with you, but like we're not gonna know, you know, by the time the due diligence is up, so you're gonna have to give us another couple of hours. I've always had pretty good luck with that because you know it's their fault for getting us that late. Like if they want to buy it, they need to give us some time to.
Sometimes you're unreasonable.
But they are some
They
are.
were 6,000 to repairs to 11,250 2-3 days after the due diligence, 25. And
Yeah.
none of it was substantiated, we didn't get none of it inspector.
Figure it.
Anyhow, I had not gone back and reflected on that. I
Yeah.
looked it up and I was speaking with the seller, but that was good.
Yeah, yep, that's a drop dead date. But like I said, to tell everyone, you can renegotiate as long as both sides agree. Yeah. Closing date. So I honestly don't know why they do both. I don't know. I always use a date typically because I don't like putting we're going to close within 30 days and 45 days. I typically just put a worst, like the lender will tell me I need 30 days to close. So I'll find a Friday on the 30th, whatever works for your buyer. I typically put a date in there. I don't know. You're fine doing either or, in my opinion. It's
I'm like you, I like.
It's just-
because.
yeah. I like having a date that way everybody knows what we're kind of locked in on,
But
and
no,
that's when we're going to close. And then if it doesn't, we just
Right.
have to renegotiate like we've always done.
I like the honor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what I said. I think it's just personal preference. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it.
Closing this transaction shall occur on. And the second.
But it also-
Shall occur no sooner.
So typical what you'll see here is no sooner than
that's
20
right.
days, no later than
I
45.
don't like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I've had people use that, like if they have a little cell,
Yeah.
you know, because it's like,
Right.
oh, we're just, yeah, we're getting it on the market in the
Right.
next 48 hours. You know, then you have to think, okay, is that home gonna get under contract and close within 30 days?
Right.
Or you're giving the, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like you're.
Yeah.
Kind of saying,
And I understand there is a time and place for the second.
but yeah,
Yeah.
As in like honored with words, because lenders will
Right.
say shall occur on this date and they won't.
everybody
Right,
wants.
right, I know, and I feel like a lot of lenders, they work towards that, so they'll put other ones ahead of time that have
They
to
do.
close sooner, so. I typically put a date in there, now I will use this sometimes if I have a lender like, ooh, you know, there's a lot involved in this deal.
Yes.
I'm gonna try my best to get it done as soon as possible, but it may take me another week or so from normal,
And
and then maybe I'll use that,
And sorry, but then it makes me think under that.
right here,
Writing under the bold type of the essence,
right,
those boxes.
oh, I know,
You know,
yeah.
everybody's.
All dates and times
Where's that
except for
closing date?
except for closing. Yeah, I know. So it's where this is new. I mean, we'll see. Closing. So we talked about closing date. Yeah, like I said, I think you're fine either way. You can put a certain date in here, or we want to close within 30 or 40 days, or whatever you want to put. But buyer, excuse me, buyer broker commission. So here's where you're going to put out how you're going to get paid. So you've already got your buyer rep signed. You cannot put. One thing I want to say is you cannot put more on here than what your buyer rep is signed. That's one area where you can get in trouble. So if you've got a buyer rep signed that says the buyer's get, you know, you're going to get 3%, and you want to have the seller cover that so the buyer doesn't have it, which is what I always do. You're going to check 3%, and you're good. If you have a flat fee, so I will say a lot of people nowadays are charging like a $3.99 fee, transaction fee. You can pop that in here as well if you want to try to get the seller to pay it instead of your buyer having to pay it. So you can do either or there, but this is how you get paid. And if this isn't filled out here, then the buyer's gonna have to pay if they've signed on the buyer rep. Have you and honestly, I haven't had too much issues with this. I mean, have you had any negotiate this or
Yeah.
tried to negotiate it?
No.
I had one try to negotiate it, but I said no, it's 3%. Like stuck with it.
Same realtor just threw 10 grand out.
Did
It was 95, I can't remember what we were offering, I was offering. But he threw 10 grand out. I just charged 2 grand.
Yeah.
That's well, they left the house, you can take the percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, he's.
How bad do they want it? Or how bad do
He's interesting.
Yeah,
He's an interesting
that's
person.
funny.
So, yeah.
And I guess his buyers knew he put that on there because they signed it. So yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Okay, then deed. So here's you're gonna put 9 times out of 10, you're gonna leave this unchecked. They're all just gonna be your typical general warranty deed. A special warranty deed is like if it's been a foreclosure is kind of what I say, or if there's something on the deed that's not typical, which you wouldn't know that unless the listing agent would share that with you. You would only check that if it's not a general warranty deed, and then everybody is signs or initials. Time is of the essence. That's where it's kind of talking about all dates and times and deadlines in here are set in stone, except for the closing. That's where it gets a little interesting. Failure to comply with any date, time, or deadline herein, except for closing, shall be a material breach, and the breaching party shall not be entitled to any period to cure such breach unless expressly stated herein. So the way I kind of explain this is like these deadlines are set in stone. Like we've got to stick to these deadlines. It is what it is. The closing is the one there's an exception because they kind of are giving you, if you put a date in here and the lender's just not ready and it's not really the fault of the buyer or the seller, like that's not necessarily set in stone. Like that can kind of be renegotiated. Obviously, you're still going to get an addendum signed extending the closing date. But I that's how I explain why they put accept closing date.
And do you, and you have, or not have, but do most of your buyers sign them?
I do not have them sign this. I only sign this if I have a, and I haven't had it. But if I had a seller or a buyer who were like, we're leaving the country on the 1st, so we have to close this on the 31st. So I'll click this and make sure the other person's aware of like once they leave, like we have to close this on the 31st and nobody thinks about it. So that's the only time I see why you would have to make that set in stone is if there was a real reason why it needed to close on a certain.
Yeah, because like we were all saying, you know, everyone wants to get to the close.
Right.
Normally, you know, and honor before.
Right.
If that's still
There-
there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
usually you close on that date, but if it happens, you know, within 48,
Right.
you know.
And then here's where they're gonna put contract subject to any addendum. So if you have any extra addendums where you're writing in certain things, like sometimes I try to keep personal stuff out of it, but if they want the playset, you may have it as an addendum, but you're still not supposed to put that on so they can see it. So that's one of those. Yeah.
I think going through this.
Yeah.
We have 4 pages of lifestyle. I love they had their attorney draw up a 4-page. It was
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
What is it?
Amazing.
The 4-pager. So it's only 4 pages long.
That lifestyle.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
a lot
very,
of brokerages.
There's a lot they use. That's what's weird for these lenders. A lot of different brokerages go in their own.
well, and that's the confusion. This one right here caused a buyer in Cincinnati. Anyhow, they looked at the front page. The
Oh, no.
whole loan went through based upon the price on the front page, the lender.
They didn't see
Page
all-
13. And so the buyer at the last minute had to come up with 5,000 cash,
Jeez.
because we negotiated 5,000 up. Fortunately, they had it,
Right.
or the deal would have gone down. So I always make sure that when I send it to the lender, they understand. And then I had one question that.
Yeah.
It's imperative that you let the lenders know, because there's so many contracts floating around out here,
Mhm.
and to let them know,
Yeah.
go. to
They may
page-
not do it. Yeah.
go to
Make sure
page
they know the.
13, I think it is,
Right.
where the final price was negotiated.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, I agree. You're right.
That's about the only thing on it, but this is a great help.
Yeah, no problem. So you're gonna do addendums, expiration. So you're gonna put an expiration. Like I said, I tried to give the sellers plenty of time, but I also try to get it done as soon as possible. So yeah, I try to at least give them. I give them till the evening of the day I'm making an offer if it's possible. If the listing agent says they need more time, then we can reevaluate that. But I try to get them done sooner than later before anybody can jump in and multiple offers. Definition. So I kind of just tell them they can read this if they want, but this kind of just has definitions for different verbiages and words that they've used throughout this contract, explaining like due diligence period, effective date, escrow, what all of that is. And that's what I said. That's why I share this free time, that way they can read it. Escrow, this is talking about the escrow check you're gonna get, who it's supposed to be held by, the rules they have to follow, how long they have to get it in. So you're supposed to get that escrow check within 72 hours to your office, if that's who's holding it. Disclosures, acknowledgement, and addendums. So you have the property condition, which is your seller's disclosure report. You've got common property regime. So this is like if it's an HOA or condominium, I just tell them that we can get copies of those documents if they want to review those. And I recommend if they do want to review those, they do it within a due diligence period so they can back out if there's something they don't like in those. So I just explained that to them. We can get all those documents if need be. Leases and tenants, that just applies if it's a rental property that you're buying and it's leased. Disclosures, you've got your seller disclosure, condominium certificate, if it's a condominium, fair housing, lead-based paint. And I say, these are all disclosures that you're gonna see from me and you've reviewed, and it's just explaining that. Seller's acknowledgement, buyer and seller acknowledge that the licensee in this transaction may receive a fee, so you realize you may get commission in this deal, if it goes through. You're just signing off on that. Regulatory disclosures, I just tell them this is something you'll do through the lender. You've got a 3-day period that you're gonna have to do TRID, and they'll have documents you have to sign ahead of time. Just kind of giving them a warning that there's documents that will be required to sign to close.
What's the acronym? Tread.
What is it? I don't even remember. That's a good question. I know, I can't even remember.
I know, I can look that up. Tread, it's just 3-day. Go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, I guess there it is. It's right there. It's the TILA RESPA integrated disclosure.
That's.
Yeah, there. It's so it's in
Thank you
here.
very much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I didn't remember it.
I get asked that question, like, what is tread?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. I'm like, oh. I'm like, that's a lender question. And then you'll check here if the seller is a licensee or if your buyer is a licensee. That way everybody's aware and it's common knowledge. Buyer's acknowledgements. Buyer shall be solely responsible for inspecting the property's current zoning and neighborhood. So this is just taking, in my opinion, blame off of us. That they can't blame us for them not doing their own due diligence to make sure they're buying the property that they want. Buyer shall have deemed to have constructive notice of any matter that's public knowledge, blah, blah, blah. MLS, seller and buyer acknowledge that the brokers may disclose information on the MLS for like if it's sold and what price. So basically, if they sign this, they're agreeing that it's okay for us to put it on the MLS that it's sold and what price. Financing contingency. So I just tell them this talks about the rules with your finance contingency, interest rates, that kind of stuff to read through it. Appraisal contingency. This is going to talk about the appraisal and what your rights are. And what can happen if it does or does not appraise. And typically I tell them if it doesn't appraise, at that point, it's up to you. You can back out and say, I don't want it, or we can renegotiate that value if the seller is willing to renegotiate. So that's just kind of how I explain that. Due diligence, this gets more into the weeds on what all they can do during due diligence, but without reading it all, during due diligence, they can inspect pretty much anything they want to inspect. Sellers have to make it readily available for any contractors to get in there to do inspections, and that they can pretty much back out for any reason, if no reason. That's kind of how I explain that. Pest inspections, you need to have those done and make sure they know if you want to have a termite inspection or any other pest inspection, that has to be done during due diligence as well.
So it
which
is
was
your-
it is. It's not like it was before. Like before, you can do your thing and then do pest. Now it's,
I haven't-
you have to have everything done during due diligence.
I haven't gone through the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it explains like if there is like termite damage to like the old one, if there's termite damage, the seller has to or if there's termites, the seller has to treat it at their expense. Yep. And then if there's damage up to 1%, yeah, just like the old one. Title, so this just explains the that they're gonna have a title search done, and if there's any, they have to deliver a clean and clear title. If there's any liens or anything on there, those will have to be taken care of. So that's just kind of how I run through that with them. And I tell them, the closing attorney is gonna do the title search and make sure it's clear, and if there's any issues, they'll let us know well in advance. Owner's title policy, I usually tell them they can I can get them a copy from my title company on what that covers. And I kind of explain it as in it covers your equity in the house, the owner's title policy. It's up to them if they want it. It's the cheapest price it'll ever be within 30 days of them buying it. It's based on the purchase price. And it's really just, it's up to them if they want to buy it. I do try to tell my people if I've got people putting a lot of money down and they have a lot of equity, that may be something they want to do just to protect their interest in it. So what it covers is if there was ever a title issue missed in a previous heir or a previous sale, and they came back and sued and said they never had the right to sell the property and they had right to your property. If they were to win, your owner's title policy would cover your equity that you have.
And I haven't had title issues. Let me ask you this, Jesse, because this is with what we're seeing on the out here, scams and so forth. Do you feel title insurance is even more important today than it was? Because I have never this shit.
I still to
And
this
I-
day don't push it
I don't-
unless
I
I
don't
have
push
somebody have a lot of money down, and then I'll say you may want to really look at this if you
Okay,
have a lot of equity.
or a foreclosure or.
Right.
Okay.
And I think it's also for me, it's property dependent. Like if I'm selling a house over here that's sold 4 or 5 times in the last 15 years, I feel like that's 4 or 5 property searches and title searches done by different people. The likelihood of something not have been found, I think, is slimmer, but it's not zero. So I mean, I feel like it's like life insurance, like it's health insurance, like it's just what is that buyer's risk tolerance? You know, do you feel good that they've done a title search and nobody's gonna come back and you're fine with not having yours protected? But it's kind of a low cost, it's not very expensive. So I don't know. I leave it up to them, and there's a pamphlet and I can get it to them and they can read it or I can email it to them.
I usually let the title
Yeah.
company give them a.
And I tell them, I'm like, look, you don't have to decide now. You don't even have to decide at closing. You have 30 days from closing and take advantage
Don't
of it.
forget,
They
they're
do.
worried
I
about
know.
me, so.
But it's hit or miss. I'd say. I mean, I think I've had more and more people doing it lately,
That's what I've
Right.
seen, it seems like the title companies are pushing it
pushing it a little bit
a
more.
little bit more.
I agree, and it could be because of scams now. I mean, there's scams are everywhere nowadays.
I
Yes.
guess question.
Absolutely.
This is like a first time.
Yeah.
We bought a house and there was liens on the house
Uh-huh.
and we had to pay them that they weren't our. Yeah, you know,
As a buyer, you paid the liens that were the sellers.
we did. The
Hmm.
seller paid some of them, but we had to pay the unidentified, I don't know what words they use, but they didn't.
They shouldn't have forced you to pay them because that's not
We
your.
couldn't close unless we paid them.
So maybe that was one of those, the sellers didn't have the money and they were like, well, if you want this house, you're gonna have to
Did
pay.
would title insurance cover that, or is that something that we?
If that owner, sorry,
Yeah, no, you
if
got it.
that owner had title insurance, then
It would have,
but
yeah,
it takes time.
but like it wouldn't have covered you though.
It wouldn't cover me.
Right.
buyer.
So your title insurance takes place once you bought it and it's yours
Oh, okay.
from there on.
I
Yeah.
see, now.
So since those were already there, they would, that would have been covered.
Okay, so now I.
So basically what it is like, the easiest way to explain it, so once you buy it, let's say you know, and I say it protects your equity because if you have a mortgage, your loan amount is already covered by an insurance policy the mortgage company requires you to have.
Yes.
But you'll have equity. So if you put 20% down, you're gonna have 20% equity in that house right off the bat. So if you have owner's title insurance, so once you purchased it, the deed's in your name, and let's say 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you still live there, and a previous heir, not even from the previous seller, maybe 2 sellers down, came up and sued you because they thought they had right to your property and never signed off selling it. Well, if they sued you and won, they would get the property because it's theirs. They could take it from you. Something was missed previously in a title search. But if that happened and you had title insurance, whatever your equity amount was at that point, that insurance would cover that. So you would get your money back basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So it covers.
The mortgage would be paid by the insurance.
Correct. So any mortgage loan would be covered by the insurance the mortgage company requires.
Okay.
But the owner would cover your like, so if you had paid it off in 10 years and you were debt free and they won and you didn't have owner's title, they could technically take your property and you'd be screwed because something was missed previously. Now, what's the chances of that happening? It's very, very slim. But it's obviously happened to somebody at some point. That's why it's.
Been to my family.
Did it really? Oh
Yes,
man,
it
that's
did.
terrible.
It was a property that we sold on name contract many in the 80s.
Mhm.
And it never got signed off on or something, so that owners knew people wanted to buy it. Didn't file a search, found that we still owned the property basically,
Mhm.
because it never.
Somebody hadn't signed.
Somebody hadn't signed off or trade or transferred or whatever, and we settled with the buyers
Gotcha.
for a very low amount of money, because we couldn't prove it was still our property.
Gotcha.
So-
Yeah. So something similar to that. If it were to be proved that you wanted it, like, so if it was still yours, you could have almost said, no, we're not selling it to you, and that buyer would have been screwed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it protects. Yeah. So you have been through that. I actually haven't, you're the first one I've met that's had something like that miss. I mean, I've had some mortgages that never got paid off, that got paid off, but the liens weren't released, but.
This happened 3 years ago, and the property was sold in the 80s, so it was that.
Right,
far
that transaction, yeah,
Of it, just that many years
yeah.
between But it did happen, and the attorney that handled the land contract was also the attorney for the buyer of the property.
Gotcha.
I wanted to sue and my
Yeah.
brother now.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's what it would cover. Yep. Good question. All right, so now we're down to closing. So this is talking about pre-closing. You're going to do a final walkthrough. So I just tell them, hey, if we've whether we've had repairs requested or not, we're going to do a final walkthrough, usually the morning of or the day before, whatever works for everybody's schedule. Just to walk through the property, make sure they fix what they were supposed to fix, make sure it's in the same shape and condition it was when we went under contract before you go and spend all your money and buy it. So it just explains that closing procedure. It's talking about seller affidavits. This is all stuff that'll have to be signed by the closing attorneys. They'll prepare, and I explained that, like they'll prepare all those paperwork for you to go through and answer any questions you have from that. Proration, so all taxes and real estate assessments, HOA dues, common area dues, all that will be prorated. So if we close on the 15th of a certain month, you're gonna be, the seller will be charged through that date, and then from that day on, anything after that you're owed, and the attorneys will prorate all that for taxes and have all those numbers done for us. Common area regime dues and assessments. This is talking about the condo association HOA dues. Those will be prorated. Condos, sometimes there's fees that the buyers will have to pay when they purchase a house. So that's just talking about the dues that are due when you sign that could be due for your condo association. Leases, this is saying any leases. So if you bought a rental property and there's a current lease in effect, that lease transfers with the property, and so the new buyer has to abide by that new lease unless they negotiate something else with that tenant. Funding, all proceeds shall be paid immediately available in U.S. funds. Location, this is talking about the location of the closing office will be by the buyers. The buyer picks who the closing attorney is and where that will be. Obviously that can be negotiated. If a seller has somebody they want to use, they can ask, but it's technically the buyer's choice who they want to use. Let's see. Seller deliver. So I usually tell them typically around here, seller's going to deliver to buyer any seller affidavits, the settlement statement, any warranty information, any documents reasonably necessary to facilitate the buyer's lender, any title insurance. They're going to supply all that. A buyer is going to bring the purchase price that's on the settlement statement, any documents that they need, any documents the title needs. And then I do go ahead and explain sellers typically here pay to prepare the deed. That's a fee on their side to prepare the deed into the new buyer's name. And then there's typically fees for mortgage payoff and any wiring fees to send that money to get it paid off. But that's everything else as far as the closing is considered is typically paid by the buyer. Possession. So because unless you agree to something different, possession is once closing happens, the deed is signed, the keys are handed over, and it's the new buyer's name. Now, obviously, you can do an addendum if a seller wants 24 hours after closing to get things out. You can sign an addendum saying different possession. But if you don't have any of that, they're supposed to be out on that time. And I actually had this happen with my buddy John Bentley in a deal we just did 6 months ago, and he did not know, but he put in the MLS the buyer needed 48 hours post closing. Well, I sent him an offer with none of that in there because my buyers didn't want to give it. They've signed, everything's fine, and about 4 days before closing, he's like, they're not. We closed on a Friday. He's like, they're not going to be out until Sunday, and I was like, that's not it. I said, John, that's not in the contract. He was like, it's in the MLS, and I said, that don't matter. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I thought if it was in the MLS that it stuck with it. I said, buddy, it's what's in the contract and what they agreed to. I said, the MLS says 400,000. Are we going to get
on the other side?
I know. I was like, "Are we going to give you 400,000? No, we're going to give you what the purchase price says on the contract." And luckily, it worked out. My people were really nice. We ended up giving them 1 day, and it all worked out. But he learned. I was like, "Dude, that could have been bad." I was like, "You weren't working with me, and my people did. Like, what if they had movers scheduled?" And like, I had no clue. So he learned a hard lesson, and I was like, "You need to make sure you get that signed in an addendum." So. If you don't have anything signed, those buyers are supposed to get the property and it is theirs once the deed is in their name. They get
Is it
to
still
use.
broom swept? I haven't read
It does say broom swept, yeah.
It
I
does.
think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, broom clean condition.
Broom clean.
Yeah. And now that's one of those iffy ones
Oh.
too. That's like not everybody's broom clean is the same.
Yeah.
So and what I tell my people is like the contract says it's supposed to be broom clean condition. So you need to have like if I have my sellers. I'm like, you need to make sure you have
You're-
everything cleaned out, there's no
Like to
trash.
receive
And
that.
it shouldn't be junk. I'm not saying they're gonna go through with a dust bunny, but you know, I said,
I
but.
bought it, and I said, was broom clean, no, they took the broom off it. Enough dirt,
Yeah.
they didn't mop, they didn't.
Well, and I try to prepare my buyers for that. I'm like, look, I personally, when I sell a house, I want them to be able to move into my house and it's clean like I would have kept it, but not everybody is that way. And I'm like, you may have, you know, it does say it's supposed to be broom clean, but you're probably gonna have to go in there and do your own cleaning to make sure it's how you want it. Like, we don't know how everybody takes care of their house or how they clean. So I try to prepare them for that because unfortunately, we just don't know these days. Some
I
people
think
leave it a
my
little
sellers
dirty.
forget the Broom,
Yeah,
because it had not been mopped,
right.
and so that's funny that phrase is in there, so.
Well, and I'm glad they have it in there because it does at least give you a talking point for your seller and your
It
buyer
does,
to
it
kind of
does.
prepare them.
Set the expectations.
Right.
which They still don't lie, but
Right.
they still leave all kinds of trash.
And they do, and I mean, I've even had some sellers that are like, and I mean, shoot, I've even paid to have stuff cleaned out because I felt terrible. I'm like, I'm sorry, I will get, dump somebody over there, we'll get this cleaned up because that's just how
I
I
was
am.
embarrassed for.
Yeah, and I've done that,
Jesse,
and I even, you'll even have conversations with them, and I'm like, look, do you wanna move into a house where people have left junk? But they'll still leave junk. so.
Same distribution box too, left a house full of stuff.
And it's frustrating, I mean, it's,
And
yeah,
it was very embarrassing because
Yeah.
I almost went through and he taught me a lesson on your listings to always go visit or have them, I've had them do video tours to show me the condition the day before closing or 2 days before closing, because I don't trust them.
yeah, that's smart.
Really good stuff, like that.
No,
Yeah.
My neighbor.
They're not supposed to leave anything, and if they wanna leave it, you're supposed to ask the other
Yeah,
party, like,
my
do you
neighbor-
care if I leave?
Left beautiful furniture.
Yeah.
She was flying.
matter.
But see, that buyer could be like, look, it's supposed to be
I was
empty.
gonna ask, does it then become the buyer's property, like if they?
So the buyer can like refuse to close and say,
Oh, okay.
until you
But
get
if
this
they-
out of here.
Closed without realizing, property. He actually bought it, so I didn't see. Got it, I don't know how to get it.
Oh, you're saying like the buyer, can the seller come back and get it after that? If they
Yeah,
wanted
it'd
it?
be the buyer's property once you close.
Technically, it's theirs, unless
Okay,
you
so they can
agree.
Do anything with it they want.
Correct, because the property, if they want, yeah, so if they closed on it, he left that stuff in there, the way I look at it is, it's theirs now, he left it, he's out and the possession is now, all that is into the
He
buyer's.
gave the furniture to his work.
That's fine, you can use it for firewood.
I mean, I
That's-
saw,
that's right, yeah.
I saw the furniture and I was like.
Decent furniture,
Yes.
yeah.
They just, she was flying fast. She was flying fast.
Right.
Everybody thinks the same furniture is beautiful.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And then you got warranties, so any seller signs and agrees to send any existing warranties over to the buyer. This talks about like any breach of the contract, and I mean, I tell them like read through this so you know, but basically, if you can back out during due diligence. If you choose not to back out during due diligence and then you don't close on it, you are technically in breach, and you're most likely going to lose your earnings money. And I let them read through it because I don't want me to say something and them taking it away that's not. I'm not an attorney, so that's kind of all I say in those paragraphs. And I'm like, if you want to read that, you can read it. And then kind of go through there.
Just say you can back out during due diligence for any reason.
Even if for no reason at all.
No,
Yeah.
Per
Per this new contract, yeah, per this contract, yeah.
Okay.
Each contract.
Literally, if you have 14 days on there and on that 14th day before it expires that night, if they're like, we just changed our mind, we don't want it, they can back out. They get their
Okay.
money back.
Okay, and they get their.
Yep. They do. As long as you send that notice to them before the due diligence expires.
But if it's 1 day past due diligence.
They're pretty much locked in. Most likely they're gonna lose their earnest money. They would have to prove that like financing fell through or it didn't appraise. Or there was a title issue that's kind of the only 3 ways that would maybe still get it after that. But it's still, this contract's still iffy on if they don't get financing, do they get their earnest money back?
Okay.
Still
Is it?
iffy. Kinda.
Okay, that was a concern. Thank you. When this first came out, that's one of the reasons I didn't like it.
So people are playing on that, it says in here, no fault of the buyer. So, but some people are like, well, if they don't get financing, it's the buyer's fault. So there's, until somebody sues over it, we're not gonna. That's the one tricky part.
But if the lender issues a denial letter, something catastrophic.
Most likely,
happens,
most likely you say financing's denied, you send a thing saying that we want our earnest money back, we didn't get financing, cause you check financing.
Okay, cause
And
that,
9 times out of 10, they let you out of it, but there is some people who like to be devil's advocate that say, well, why did the financing get denied? And then they wanna know, did it get denied because the buyer went and bought furniture? Cause if they did, then it was the buyer's fault, and then I want their earnest
Oh my
money.
gosh.
I understand, and I.
Now, I haven't had that happen, but
Yeah.
I've heard people argue that.
Got 10 grand steel fighting over, because I had lake property, they held it on the market for tourism season on Lake Cumberland. And it was a terrible situation, they had lost 3 contracts. Long story short is, the lender would issue a denial letter.
Yeah,
And they wanted out of it literally the day before closing.
so, and if you want.
And
district
so we
denial,
held the 10,000,
yeah, I would have too.
and so it's still being held with that.
Are you gonna have to go to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jenny backed me on this one.
Yeah.
He did, but of course we had to pull out.
You got the seller, right?
Had the seller, but I mean, I think it's on.
I mean, cause if they're not sending a denial letter, then that, to me, that means they're not denied, so the
They're-
buyer's just not buying.
The buyer's broker said, I don't know why.
But they were
They
gonna say it was.
wanted their 10 grand back, they put 10 grand in earnest money down. It's gonna
Because the one.
They just put 10 grand in earnest money, but they wanted it back, he got cold feet at the last minute.
Yeah, so in my opinion,
It wasn't.
yeah, they're not
And-
denied,
And
right?
the broker on the phone, I was on the boat, in the middle of the lake on October the 3rd, I'll never forget it.
You'll get that
And the
one,
broker said to me, I don't know why the lender won't issue a denial letter, I said, because.
cause he's not denied, right,
He
yeah,
wasn't
he can't
denied.
lie,
So
right?
therefore.
They were trying to get out of the contract.
Yeah, they were trying to use financing to get out, but,
Right.
Yeah. and I would be the same way, so if I represent my seller, I'd be like, well, without a letter, you're not denied, so until you produce a letter,
Well,
we're not letting you get your earnest money.
I stood strong, because there was maybe,
Yeah.
it was an estate sale, I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah,
And so, but that was one thing, and one reason I'm glad you brought that up, so I need to really go back and review this again,
Mhm.
even after this.
yeah.
But the gray area on, I
The
understand.
financing, yeah. And like I said, I haven't had it happen, like, I've been past due diligence and I've had, I think I've had 2 that financing ended up getting denied. And we just sent, well, I got a denial letter, sent a denial letter, and we got our earnest money back.
Right.
But I could see an argument from somebody else.
The majority of lenders are not just in denial letter, if it's not denied,
That's
they're
right.
gonna miss their license.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, there
Correct.
is a nefarious person out there,
Right.
and so, but the gray area was concerned, continue on, I didn't mean it.
No, you're good.
That- that's
This is
one-
all good
It was
stuff.
good
Yeah.
when you're
yeah.
short, I mean, it's.
This is why I love Ignite and like having, especially agents who've been around for a while, because you hear stories that people learn from and
Okay,
things to learn, like, know
And
about.
with this contract, and that was of course, I think with the old contract, that might have been the 5-page or even maybe lifestyle's 4-page. But long story short, this one worried me because it just seemed like. Yeah, it
Yeah.
could hurt the buyer in the end, and so you have to be very, very.
You have to be
careful.
very careful. And that's why I try to tell my people, like, this due diligence is like a drop dead date, and it's almost, I really want you to make sure. I even checked with the lender. I mean, I make a reminder in my phone for all my deals, what day the due diligence is up. And I do it a day before that. And I call the lenders, be like, how is their
To
financing
make sure
looking?
there's no.
Just to make sure they feel good about, have they gotten you everything? Do you feel good? We're gonna hit the table, because our due diligence ends tomorrow, and after that, it's harder for my buyer to get their
Absolutely.
money back if something were to happen.
So
I always do that. Yeah.
I mean, you just don't lose somebody's
Right.
investment
Yeah,
at the end of the day, and I need to start setting the reminder,
Yeah.
because I've had to go back 2 weeks out.
I mean, and I'm always good about making sure the buyers know, but like, since this new contract, I make sure to reach out to the lenders to make sure that I feel good, that they feel good about the loan.
How
Okay.
new is this contract? I missed.
2 years.
Yeah, a year and a half,
I
2
know, I
years.
still-
Well, it was like 2 years ago, but then they redid it a couple times. I think they finally
Okay.
finished it in January of last year.
So it's gonna be new for me.
No, yeah.
It's almost.
This will be like
better
what
for
you're, yeah.
People, yeah.
But the one thing that you'll, because they came out with this new one, a lot, like she's talking about, a lot of different brokerages around here have their own contract.
Yeah.
Before this one, I'd almost say 90% of people used the typical
5-page.
realtor 5-page one. So you didn't have to learn a bunch of other contracts. Now you're seeing different contracts, and you kind of have to read through them if you've never seen them before. Like if you've never seen Lifestyle's 5-pager, you're gonna have to kind of read through the 5-pager to make sure it's. I would say majority of the time you'll see the board one,
Yeah.
but you do kind of.
That's what we use.
That's what we use.
It is. it
That's what
is,
our broker uses.
Which is
Okay.
the only thing that really. We don't. I don't get it. Right off.
Yeah,
I missed 4 page.
How many pages is this?
It's 13 pages.
Us-
I will say, so our old one used to be 5, it's 13 now. It protects the realtors way more now. It's a lot of verbiage that has more protection for us, so we can't be sued or liable for a lot of things from buyers and sellers.
I think it's funny, it's one of the first things, like when I was interviewing with Kelly,
Yeah,
I said, if you don't mind, cause she was like, oh, I can let you in, you know, like set up command, you know, you get in there, you know your rights and stuff. I said, well, if you don't mind, I'm sure like in dot loop, you've got folders where can you send me the KWC folder? Cause I want to see what your contract looks like. And it was like, well, I mean, it's
So
something
standard,
interesting. I said, oh, okay, I just, you know, my former
yeah.
brokerage, you know.
Had a really nice.
Got lawyers together that have
Really
and the
good for-
brokerage I'm with in Tennessee.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to make sure there's not any,
Yeah.
you know, TWC,
Right.
your logo on it.
People kept talking, you know, get the 4-page or 5-page one, that, so I thought this one was like 2 pages.
No, it went the opposite way. Yeah, it got more
They
detailed.
went the opposite, but essentially the first 2 pages is where all the information is.
Yes.
Majority of the rest of it is definitions.
Correct.
So it's
correct.
overwhelming to the consumer,
Yeah.
because, and so, once I finally sat and looked at it, but I need to really.
Yeah.
Look this over.
And I mean, when this first came out, I mean, I read it and read it and read it multiple times just because I wanted to make sure I understood, and then I had questions. That's why. I mean, there was like 5 versions of this, so they came out with a new one. I think they finally locked in on this one last January, but. It's you need to, especially you, before you make an offer. I tell all new agents you need to read through all the documents you're going to have a buyer or seller sign. That way you personally understand it.
As, well, I don't have convenient, well, right,
Oh yeah, for sure.
one of these, so I.
Well, you
can
can
review.
go to Bluegrass Realtors under
Okay.
their forms. Oh, you're not.
She's not licensed. It says she's not licensed.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, I don't know.
You're
I don't know if we're allowed to
not.
get. I don't think until you're licensed, we're not allowed to share forms. Yeah.
Okay,
You get through your class.
I'm like, should I close my eyes and not?
No.
I'm just not allowed to physically give you a copy. Yeah.
I
I
appreciate
hate to say it,
for
because
my
you
test.
could probably Google
It's
Bluegrass
still- it's
Realtors.
just-
I know you can probably find it online somewhere. I'm sure.
it is,
Yeah.
thank you for putting it into perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And then one biggie here. So this is agent broker remedy. So this talks about what this is what I kind of tell them. If we were to get into these squabbles over the contract, and this is if the old contract was the same, before a buyer can straight up sue us, the other client, or the seller sue the other client, we agree in this contract to go to mediation first and try to work it out that way before you get into the law.
Make sure you tell the client that.
I do. Yep.
Okay.
I do. Yep.
Mediation first, court second, if never been to court, never been to mediation.
Me either. You better knock on wood. You better knock on wood. Attorney fees and costs. So this basically says any attorney fees that are accrued are going to be accrued by that client, buyer or seller. Like we're not paying for any attorney fees as realtors. Copies and counterparts. This just explains that a fully executed fax or electronic copy of the contract shall be treated as an original. So electronics, basically just saying electronic signatures are fine, faxes are fine. It doesn't have to be a wet copy.
Thank you, I had not looked at that.
Yep.
I have not been sending, dropping off the
Yep.
hard copies.
Days calculating time period. So this is where it explains any days that are set in here. So like when we put 14 days for due diligence, this explains when that expires. So it will expire at 12 a.m. on that 14th day. So if today is the last day, today's my 14th day, and it's today at 12 a.m. So 11:59 is your last chance to back out. Once that hits 12 a.m. of that 15th day, that's when that's when the termination starts for all the timelines in here. So any date that's in here, 12 a.m. is the end. So they basically have that full day of that last day. Now, obviously, don't wait that long. You know, if you know your buyer is not going to buy it, like let's not hold the seller hostage.
India.
Yeah, I mean, we all can, and you're going to get busy, and you're doing multiple things at times. So that's why having checklists and reminders are key, and that's why Command's awesome. It'll
This
step by step.
I know I'm not this far along, but this is so, I'm learning so much. right
Well, you
now.
bought, so you bought.
You bought and sold so much, yeah.
Yeah,
know,
I've
too.
bought so much
Yeah,
property,
yeah.
so, yeah.
Well, you're ahead of the game already coming in here without a license, so that's good for you.
Well, I mean, it's been amazing Because when I do, I can hit the ground running,
Right.
get my license, because I'm already formulating
Yep.
so much stuff in my head.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep. The entire contract amendment and modification, this is just saying that this persists in the entire contract. Unless there's any addendums, those will be assigned, but basically these 13 pages are the contract. There's no other documents unless they're stated in here that are pertinent to this offer. Subsequent offer, so this is telling, this is another key point, I tell my sellers and my buyers. Unless it's stipulated somewhere in the addendum that you wanted them to sign, the seller is allowed to accept backup offers. So that is a lot, you are signing in this contract that the seller is allowed to go get a backup offer. Because I have accepted a backup offer before and had the buyer's agent not happy about it, and I'm like, it's in the contract that we are allowed to have a backup offer. He didn't realize that. And so he had to go back and look, and he was like, yep, you're right. So, and that's good for that's bad for the buyer, because then if you have a backup offer, maybe your seller's not as likely to negotiate repairs or something like that. So it kind of puts, the buyers don't love it, obviously, but it just states in here, the seller is totally allowed to do
So
that
a
if they want.
backup offer it would just be,
It would be the exact same thing, and then there you put a phrase in there that says, this is a backup offer to the primary offer, and you label which
Oh,
one
okay.
it is. And then it says this backup offer will become in effect if the primary offer will fall through.
okay.
And I do backup offers. So if I have a buyer who's hot and heavy on a house, but we didn't get it, especially if it's a multiple offer situation, I'll sometimes ask to be like, can we submit a backup offer in case this one doesn't work? And we'll submit it in there. And then in that backup offer, it will say buyer has the right to, release this offer, so we can go look at other properties. And if they want to write an offer in one, we'll release the backup.
And due diligence is during that time frame, can both the seller and the buyer back out for any reason?
Only the buyer can back out
Only
during the
buyer
diligence.
can back out, seller cannot.
Correct.
Because I was.
Now the seller can
thing.
the seller can refuse to do repairs, like they're not liable to have to fix anything.
Now, the
But-
seller can back out, and can't hold it down.
Right.
I mean, the buyer can go after.
Technically, they would be in breach, and
They
you
would-
could go after their earnest money if the seller said, I'm not selling to you, I changed my mind. 9 times out of 10, you're probably gonna get some of their earnest money, but you would have to, if they refuse, you have to go to mediation, get brokers involved. But
Okay.
technically, the seller can't back out without some sort of repercussion. They're open to liability, is what I think.
Okay, open yourself some liability.
Yeah, if you back out, you're opening yourself up to liability, because you're
Some-
technically in breach.
Some brokers will help you to find that, others won't.
Yeah, true. I mean, I feel like our brokers are pretty, especially Bo, he's pretty on, he's pretty on, like, he knows what the rules are, so like in this instance, you just had a seller said, I changed my mind, I'm not selling it, like, we don't wanna move, even though they're in a contract. Bo will probably say, well, technically, you're in breach of contract, you need to give them their earnest, like, you need to. Well, no, there's no.
And reimburse them for
So
their expenses.
he would just tell, he would just tell them, you're liable for, if that buyer decides to sue you because they want that house. Technically, they're not gonna be able to make you sell it to them, but they can sue you for damages that they've incurred while they have to go look
And
for
they-
another house. Or what if interest rates change, and now they're, like, I've seen mortgage payments go up and people sue them because they didn't get the rate they were supposed to get. So he does a good job of, like, if you're gonna back out, explaining what could happen.
If you have stubborn clients, go straight to bed.
Yeah, yeah,
If you says go to bed.
yeah, she's the nice one, Bo's the. But I will say, Bo has our back. Like if something's done wrong and like you like he'll fight tooth and nail for every penny of
That's
that kind of stuff.
fabulous, thank you.
I
for
mean, he
that.
will, like, especially like in the interest you're getting where it's that 10 grand should be your money. He's like, let's go to court. That's fine. We'll go. I mean, it's clear in the contract. You
That
can
is
get the 10
really
grand.
good to know.
Yeah,
Thank
he's
you.
not afraid whatsoever. Let's see. Notice any notice request for status updates is basically just saying everything needs to be in writing. Is how I explain that. If we're gonna change anything in this contract, we have to get it in writing, get it in an addendum. Professional advice, broker liability. This kind of just tells us that, hey, we are real estate brokers. We are helping you write this contract, but we are not attorneys. So if you have any questions beyond real estate advice or real estate questions that are pertaining to this offer, you need to talk to an attorney. That's basically how I explain that. And then if you have any squabbles about this between anybody else, you have to get an attorney to represent you if you're going after the other party after mediation. Terms of acceptance, this contract will become binding once everybody's fully signed the contract. Heirs and successors, I typically in 1031 exchanges. So 1031 exchange is if you're doing a tax exchange from selling a property. Heirs and successors, I basically just say, hey, once you've signed, like if sellers have signed this and then one happened to pass away or one of the heirs happened to pass away, the other heir is still liable to follow through with this contract. It's kind of how I explain that. Interpretation, this just states that the contract shall be construed and interpreted under the laws in Kentucky. Litigation arising and concerning and implicated by this contract shall be brought in where the property is located. So if it's located in Lexington or brought in Lexington, if it's in Scott County, Judson County, that's where you gotta have to go. Risk of loss. So this says that the seller is liable to keep the property in its current condition when everybody has executed this contract. So if there's a fire, storm, and there's huge damage to the property, the seller has to bring it back into its current shape to sell it to the buyer, or the buyer has the right to back out. Does that make sense?
Negotiate the price.
I'm sure anything's negotiable. Anything's
Okay,
negotiable,
you're next
but
time.
correct.
I can say, well,
We'll still take it. We don't want you to fix it, but we have to adjust the price. Yes, you can totally do that. Yeah,
okay.
anything's negotiable.
Would that be an addendum?
Correct. So you would sign an addendum, and that would be a pretty detailed addendum. But yes. And there's just blank addendum. So there's other forms. It's called a general addendum, and you can write anything in there. Yep. I don't even know how to say this. Force majeure is how I always say it. I don't know if that's right or not. And this one. So this one is talking about if something were to happen, like major things like hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, that were to, I mean, how do you explain this? It's weird. It's one of this, in my opinion, this is an attorney jargon, and I'm like, I've really had nobody even ask a question on it, so I'm like, I don't even know how I typically explain it. I just kind of say, if something crazy happens, like a force of nature, like a force of nature happens to the property, you're going to give them 14 days to get the property back, or we're all willing to extend the closing 14 days to get, like, everything has time to get back to where it was if something a force of nature can't.
It's called an act of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see it in there. It took me a minute to find it, but.
And then it says after the 14 days, then either party has the right to terminate. So I guess how I typically explain it is just if there's an act of God that keeps us from closing per the terms of this contract, or keeps the condition from not being what it was per the terms of this contract, we all agree to give 14 days to still get it to work out. And then if we still can't after that, either party has the right to back out.
And we're gonna be talking in depth during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then ongoing operations until closing, seller has to maintain the property, keep its appliances running, keep the electric on. That's one thing I do make sure they know. I tell my sellers, like, you can't turn the utilities off. They're supposed to stay on and everything in working order until closing. Now you can call and say, take them out of my name for that closing date, but they're supposed to keep everything on as it is when this contract was written, and they have to maintain it like it was. And I had one where my sellers had to call and turn it back on because they turned it off, and the buyer was like, and I didn't know they turned it off. Went for the final walkthrough, luckily 2 days ahead of time, and was like, everything's turned off here. So I called my sellers and was like, you have to turn it back on. They have to make sure everything's still working like it's supposed to be. Yep. I mean, that's basically what it was. MLS brokers are directed to report any pending and closings to the MLS sales price and other terms. Waiver, failure of buyer to or seller to insist on compliance with or strict performance. Any provision of the contract or take advantage of any right in this contract shall not constitute a waiver of other rights. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just tell them to read that. Fraud. So I tell them to read this contract or this part of fraud. And I'm like, what I just want to tell you is don't send any bank account information, any social security numbers, unless you're 100% sure it's the closing agent or it's your lender. Fraud is everywhere nowadays. People are pretending to be closing agents and getting the emails and asking for routing numbers. I mean, we had an agent here 5 years ago whose client sent $200,000 to the wrong account and lost it.
I've heard about.
204,000 or 240,000, something like that.
And they just lost for that.
Yep, they never got it back. I think they may have gotten insurance to cover it somehow, maybe the title insurance. I can't remember exactly what happened, but yeah, whoever did the fraud or the perpetrator walked away with $240,000. What they did is they pretended they were the closing attorney and said, here's the
I
wiring
get those
instructions.
emails. I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
y'all do too constantly.
Last
Leave it.
week, I
That's
mean, it
good.
wasn't for mistake, but last week I needed help with the printer. And Amazon gave me a number to call,
Yeah,
so I trusted it,
right.
and I called the number and, about halfway through the call, I realized I was talking to scammers,
Yep.
that was not.
Oh, they're everywhere. It's,
The company
yeah, it is.
that I was supposed to be talking to, they wanted the routing number.
Yep.
And
So I honestly don't even, cause lenders will still send like their wiring instructions and stuff through email, and I tell my clients like, call them and make sure you're getting the correct information before you send any wire. I'd rather you be talking directly to the closing attorney before just trusting any email you get. Even if it says who that, cause they'll, they copy the exact title, they know who it is.
I had to go through and change all of my passwords.
Yeah.
Then I sent a letter to
It's a pain.
Amazon, Amazon saying, this is a fraudulent number that I trusted you gave me.
Yeah, but they can still does. It would not be a bad idea, I wouldn't mind have, a disclosure. I know we have so many disclosures, but in the process to remind people,
About fraud.
because.
See, I feel so before this contract, I think we did have a fraud, because
Correct.
after that happened, we came out with a fraud disclosure that our office used. I guess Bo feels this kind of entitles it enough that we
Right.
don't need a
But
separate
it's
one.
so big, it's so buried, and it's such a huge deal.
Yeah.
Because something that emails, as soon as they sign a contract, how they get them via dot loop, so that.
Mhm.
As soon as a transaction goes into dot loop, my emails will start,
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
and so will my clients.
Mhm.
Which means
Be
Zillow
very-
is,
Your customer that would be very, very trusting.
right. And I mean, and that's, most people are that way. I mean, they really are. I mean, it's,
I'm with you.
that's why you have to be careful. I mean, I literally tell all my sellers, especially if
No,
they're
no, I
wiring
mean,
anything,
yeah.
I'm like, if you're gonna wire any amount of money, buyer or seller, call as you're doing it, or just, they'll probably send you the wire instructions via email or go on their website, but make sure, I would call and say, are these the correct wiring instructions? That way you're getting it from the
Can I
right person.
ask a question too?
Yeah.
I refuse to upload people's earnest money checks
Mhm.
because it has a routing number and everything, because dot
It
loop
does.
is allowed,
I know,
but we're required here to upload a copy of that.
I always do too, but it does, you're right, if Zillow were to get hacked or Dollar were to get hacked.
I've never uploaded them, I've just
Yeah.
refused and nobody's. Yeah,
Right.
but I didn't know if Keller Williams talked about
Mhm.
it. A lot of.
That would be a
times-
bold question, I guess. I don't
Okay, a
know.
lot of times I'll just,
Yeah,
put something over the
and
routing
you
number,
could,
over the routing number and bank account number.
you could always scan it in and then, block out electronically the thing, and that would be
Okay.
fine.
I just think it's.
I've never,
ridiculous
you're
to
right,
have to put it in the dot loop with the fraud that we're having.
right.
Okay.
Well, and nowadays though, so we have electronic, I've been using that a lot, so my buyers
A
will
lot of
send the
times
earnest
you-
money electronic, that way I don't even have to deal with routing numbers.
So if they do the electronic, that goes straight to Jackie, we don't have to worry
Yep,
about that.
and then they put your email on there because you're the agent, and then
Right.
you get a copy of it too. So then you can share that to show proof that you have.
Livestock withholding it, so we have to do it with closing companies.
Gotcha. Yeah, we do it here, it's through payload, there's only,
The payload on
Yep,
that.
yep,
Okay.
and it's phenomenal. I mean, most of my buyers have been using it just because of the ease, they don't have to write a check or bring it.
That
Shoot,
aren't
shoot, some of these younger ones don't even write checks, don't even have checks in.
99%.
I don't.
Right, I don't know, I mean, I use a check for like my rental property, but that's about it,
Yeah, I don't have checks.
yeah.
Yeah, and they don't, so the earnest app is what a lot of used, and so.
Yeah.
Okay, continue on. Sorry to
Yeah,
hold
no,
you.
you're good, you're good. So fraud, just warn your people about fraud, like go above and beyond, like we've said forever, communicate, communicate, communicate. Acknowledgement, so this is another just like disclosure, in my opinion, to these clients, buyers and sellers, that this contract again is legal and binding. If there are any issues, they need to be directed to see their own attorney. We will not hire an attorney for them, it will be their sole responsibility to hire an attorney. FHA and VA disclosure, so this will be blank, you won't touch it unless you have an FHA or a VA sale, and you'll know that from the lender if they're doing that kind of loan. This is just where you'll put the sales price of the contract and saying that it has to appraise for the sales price. So if you're doing FHA or VA, I don't put appraisal contingency on up here because the FHA box takes care of that. It says it has to appraise for it. It's not scrolling. Hold on. There we go. So this is where you'll fill out, you'll put the, whatever the price is you're offering. And then they'll sign, buyers will sign, sellers will sign, buyer's agent, seller's agent will sign. But otherwise you don't touch that unless it's a VA or an FHA sale. And then here's the last bit. We're finally done, 4 hours later. Buyers will sign here, whatever time they're signing, you'll fill that out. Buyer will sign, print their name. A lot of this will autofill when you enter their info through Loop, which you'll learn all that once we get in here. This is where the seller will, and that's why she was saying you need to remind some lenders, because this is where you can reject or accept, but if they counter, they may not change the terms on page 1. Now, I've had some that will do that and not just do this, but a lot of people now, because it's in our contract, will do their counter right here. They'll put the date in, what time it is, and how long the counter will last, and they'll put seller is countering the price to $290 instead of $300, and we're only going to pay $4,000 in closing costs instead of $5,000 in closing costs. So, and if your buyer comes and says, "Great, we'll take it," and they accept it, you need to make sure the lender is aware that the final terms are on this last page, which is kind of confusing. Because they're used to just looking at that first page. Yeah,
Well, some lenders will not, they won't accept it, they'll strike you.
right. I
It
know.
all has to
And
be-
I don't really do it either. I'll counter here now. Now, if it's multiple counters back and forth, I usually just update the contract because there's not another box to counter again.
Correct, okay.
So at that point, if my person's not accepting this, I'll usually call the other agent and say, "They're not accepting your counter. I'm just going to clean it and put our new offer in, and I'll update page 1, page 2, and then go from there." But if it's a clean one counter and accept, yeah, I typically just use this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I've not used this one too many times.
Right. Well, that's because you had your own. Yeah, you had the
Not
portrait.
enough to get really
Yeah.
comfortable with this. This has been great.
Absolutely. And like I said, she does a class, so if you ever need a reminder, she goes through it too. I think Bo does them every now and then.
I mean, this has been amazing. I mean, I really like-
Well, and this is the nuts and bolts of it, because this is what we use the majority of our time
You
to.
kind of explained more than. My contracts, I've only done like 3
Yeah.
contract classes, but you kind of went into more. I
Right.
was kind of like, I told them just read from this,
Yeah.
I mean, put it into,
Right.
you know, more.
I
Yeah.
have another question, this
Yeah.
is just,
I love questions.
when you have a blank space, such as that lending spot, you put impact. Or
No.
you
So there's
don't
a
have
part in the
impact.
contract that says if anything is left blank, it's meant to be 0 or nothing.
Okay.
So
That's actually in there because you used to,
Correct.
a lot of filters loved it because I did the NA.
yeah,
Around,
now you don't have to do that, so it saves you time.
see,
Yeah.
thank you so very
Yeah.
much. Well, look.
And there are certain parts where it'll actually say like if this is left blank, it'll be 7 days as the default. So like I think which one is that? I think that's the
And the,
let me see.
like,
So it'll say
180-day thing.
yeah, which one was it? So in each section it'll if
So it's
Exclusive
covered.
right to sell.
yeah, it covers you. Yeah.
Most contracts.
I still
it's
stick
blank if it-
180 there, you know, the
Which one
suicide
you
cell.
to expect.
Yeah.
Says
If
it
it's
left
there
blank,
for it,
it
show
shows.
it.
I'm trying to say which one is it.
And I sort of kind of like checklist for me, I would put in A knowing that I went through every single one,
Right.
and made sure, especially when I.
See, like right here it says select all or apply. If anything's left blank, it's 0. So that's all pretty much in there.
Okay, so
Okay.
your blank spot.
Yeah. I'm trying to find where it specifically said that. It's in here somewhere. Right. Yeah, I see like if blank 0. But there is one that says date. I can't remember. I'll have to read it again.
Because the only thing I can think of right now is the exclusive right to sell. Where it's
Right.
Protection period.
Yeah.
It was left blank 180 days, but. usually put 180
That's right,
days.
you're correct on that, I need to go back through the district, arouse myself. Spend an evening, like I tell my buyers and sellers to do.
Right.
So,
But yeah, I definitely would. Now that you're having to use this one, I would make sure you read through it, and you'll probably have questions like after you read it.
I read through it before, I'll fill one out not long back.
Right.
and-
But the hard thing is, and that's why I said it gets into the weeds a little bit, is I mean, I've even been to the board going over this new contract with the board and their attorneys, and they can't even really answer some of the questions we have. Because because it's there's still gray area, even though it's a 13 pager, there's still some gray area.
Yeah.
And they'll basically tell you until there's a lawsuit over this contract in that gray area and somebody wins, one side wins and one side loses, we won't really know the answer to that. So like,
True.
so like the due diligence thing, the financing, so your due diligence expires and then their financing falls through and they get a denial letter. Do they get their earnest money back? Well, if you have a tough seller who's like, well, why did you get denied? And they're like, they can't prove that it wasn't their fault. Because if they bought something or whatever, and that's why they got denied, or their debt to income ratio changed, that's technically the buyer. So that's what this person was saying in this meeting at Bluegrass Realtors. He was like, technically, if their debt to income ratio changes, that's the buyer's fault.
If they did something.
Yes.
To.
And he was like, so I should be able to get that earnest money, even though it's a financing contingency because it's past the due diligence. And the attorney even said, I could see your side of it, but I can't tell you if you would win that in court or not.
I'd be one of.
So because this is so new, until somebody gets a lawsuit and gets sued and there's a winner and a loser, some of these we really just don't know. Now, we may never have to deal with it. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, you'll get a denial letter. That seller will say, fine, he didn't get his
Let's
financing.
get it back on the market.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
But it's been held off the market for the entire summer and it's a tourist.
Right. Well, and that's where it gets hairy. Yeah.
And then
Because you can be sued about, especially if it's in a hot market and they took, let's say it was 10 offers and they took one that was 40 grand over and then something happened after due diligence and they can technically sue for damages if they couldn't, of what they had to settle for from what you're offering.
I just spoke to a good attorney.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's where
they
you
didn't
have to get an
sell
attorney.
it till 8 months later.
Right.
It sat empty in the deteriorated.
And so they can technically go after damages for all the mortgage payments they had to make.
I tried to get them to, but at the end of the day, I think it's probably.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, and that's the problem is attorneys are expensive, going to court's expensive, they have to get anything really done outside of mediation,
That's the big.
you have to spend. And so is it worth it?
Their state attorney actually took this because they had already paid them flat fee for him from the state.
Yeah.
So because this was part of the state, they got, I'm just thinking, I need to call and check on them. That's been a year.
Yeah.
When that suggested, this is right.
Yeah, no problem.
We always.
Y'all had some great questions too. I love it. I love it. All right, let's see where we at. I think that was the nuts and bolts of this whole
It was.
class stuff. Presenting the offer. This is all pretty easy stuff. We'll kind of roll through here. Let's see.
I do like the one over here, where it's the email summary for the listing agent. For us as a buyer's agent.
Yeah, which one? What page you on?
It's actually on 17.10. It is a
Yeah,
great,
it's up there.
It's a great-
You see it, number 5.
it's a great template for us to use when we.
Which one?
Send
No, you were on the right side.
Oh, I was on the right side. Oh, okay.
See, number 5. Email.
Oh, email summary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great email summary for us to attach,
Yeah.
when we send, to do an overview.
Absolutely.
Instead of us having to, because I usually do that.
I do
Some
too.
looks like it, some don't,
Yeah,
but.
I do too. I just try to pick.
If you're driving down the road.
What bullet points of her?
The
Yeah,
bullet points the offer and this really sweet one, I mean, anything that makes you stand out.
Absolutely.
Because the other
Yeah.
offers or.
and again, that just goes to make you're making the easier on the listing agent, the other parties.
Always.
They kind of know the nuts and bolts of what you're offering. No, I agree. It's like, I mean, this is the right stuff. Double check everything. Make sure you got it signed and correct. I mean, I go through it with it. As detailed as as detailed as I can before I send it to them to sign, but I still, even after they sign it, I go back just to, you don't like, trust me, you don't want to send an offer and be like, oh crap, I put the wrong number in, I put 300 instead of 200. Like, yeah, so I still double check and triple check before I actually send it to the other client. So just make sure you got all documents, make sure everything's signed, because sometimes Dotloop will say it's signed, but there's one missing, so you just, double check everything. Label all the documents, which those are kind of labeled already. You don't have to do all that. Order them logically. Email summary, I do that as well. Or a text summary. Sometimes I'll just do a text summary if they're not emailing. And I always like to call before I send it, just to kind of say, here's what we're offering, like explain my buyers, their situation, just whatever I think can help make ours look more.
Do you even do it in a multiple offer? I didn't want a realtor said, I'm gonna talk to me in the multiple offer, the busy season.
So I try to at least send them a summary text if I don't
I
talk to
think it's
them.
imperative.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
some of them are just not very receptive to it.
They are.
Except for Bob,
I'll be honest with you, a lot of agents nowadays, they're just,
transactional terms.
yes, I feel like a lot of them are that way. Yeah. I'm not that way. I want to hear like why you're making the offer you're making, like, and I promise you, I'll relay that to my client as well.
Right.
So I agree. So I try to, I mean, in my opinion, that's just us doing
So
everything
it's
we
not
can
just
do.
me being old school.
No, well, I'm kind of old school too, but that's what I do. I mean, I feel like that gives us a better chance, maybe. Or if I can, maybe I'm super nice and that agent loves talking to me.
Yeah, you
That,
start
that
that relationship,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Communication.
yeah. And I mean, how many times have you been in a multiple offer situation and you're the seller and you may have similar offers and you know one of the agents you've worked really well with, and do you relay that to your client and say,
Yes, sir.
I've got two same offers. I've worked with this agent many times and you know, obviously we don't know what can happen in anything, but I know this agent has been around for a while or is a good agent. And like, if they say they're pre-approved, I'm sure they're strong.
That's
you know.
how some offers were accepted.
Yeah,
And,
100%.
and the offer was very clean. I remember one just came in my mind, 3 offers and I laid them out. And I said, this one didn't even bother to,
Right.
I mean, it's
Make it
very
clean and
haphazard,
organized.
it's not complete.
Mhm.
And this
So-
agent, you
Yeah.
know, they're almost identical.
It's all a reflection. Yeah.
Almost identical, and to say that this one is extremely perfectly done, and I've worked with.
And we work
realtor
really well
that is
together.
closing.
Mhm. I agree. Yep, I agree.
So would you point out to,
The seller, if
Okay.
if you've got 3 offers that are, or
you
offers
point
that are,
out the one that's well done? You would-
when you're sitting there and they're all about the same price and they're all about the same this or that, then. You know, it's either a coin toss or which one's the cleanest offer, the best written.
Or
And-
or
and
you counter one.
client- Your seller is working with you because they trust that you'll, you know.
Or if they're the
Present
exact
everything
same
to
offer
them.
and you don't know either agent, you know, so it's like they're the exact same offer, you can counter one. Your seller can say, well, let's
Yeah.
counter this one, and if they don't take it, let's go to the other one and counter them. So
But sometimes.
at that point, it's up to the seller. But if it's a really good, I don't try to get into that a lot of times. If it's a really good offer and above asking, they're both great. I'm like, let's just pick one. Like,
If I had.
let's not get greedy.
If I had 3 offers and I had a realtor that called me, Jesse called me, and I knew Jesse worked really hard, it was calendar, and I knew that they were gonna be great to work with. But this realtor over here hadn't even called me, it just showed up in the email.
Right. And how many times does that happen?
And it was sloppy written.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but they're very similar, I'm gonna look at my seller and go,
Yeah.
this gentleman called me, I've worked
Yeah.
with him in the past. I worked
Presented their offer to you.
Presented it
Yeah.
professional, they're
Yeah.
gonna proceed professionally, this one I didn't even know came in, it was in my spam mail and I found it at midnight, I said.
Well, and that drives me nuts. I literally gotten offers and never talked to the agent ever. Didn't even know one was coming. There was no heads up.
Oh,
Like,
I would think you would call.
I don't think you're doing. You're not doing your agent
I-
Good agents float to the top.
you're doing your agent a disservice if you're not communicating with the other side.
I mean, buyers agents don't call sellers agents.
They should. But
They
I'm-
should,
They'll call and maybe ask some questions, but I've had them call, ask some questions, show the house, and then 2 days later, haven't heard from them for 2 days. I'll get a dot loop notification that I got an offer from that agent.
You know,
Never
they
heard from them. Didn't
Yeah.
no one was coming. Didn't
Didn't
nothing.
get a heads up or.
None. No.
I have-
Now I never do that. I mean, it could have been. I could have had another offer on the table already, and that agent would have never known. You know what I mean?
I guess I'm old school.
Yeah.
Because.
That's the good way to be.
Relationship is the key.
It still is.
It still is.
it truly is, the one that we got a release on that kept jacking up and not, the realtor sent it, I didn't know it was coming, hadn't heard from her, they showed it the week before. And on and on, so you have to be a chameleon, you have to read the other realtors as well,
yeah.
some wanna talk to us, some don't.
Yep.
And so if they don't wanna talk to you, then just shoot them a quick
Right,
text.
yeah,
Yeah, don't
yeah.
wanna bother you, I'm sure you've got multiple.
It's like working with buyers, like and sellers. You
Just
read them and you adapt to how like whatever they're portraying.
all of
Yeah.
this is a great reminder.
Yeah.
I guess.
Now I will say, get used to texting. A lot of agents text nowadays.
I love texting.
Yeah, so do I.
True.
So do I.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done deals before where I don't even know if I spoke to the agent after the initial conversation. Everything else was done through texting. You know?
Well, that, I mean, I can see
Yeah.
that, but I would think that the initial, there would be contact.
Nope.
Yeah. Sometimes there's not. That's what I said. Now I think that's what you should do, but sometimes there's not.
And so be prepared for it, thank you for the reminder.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to talk. Let's see. We talked about making offers. Let's talk about receiving them. As a listing agent, you have the responsibility to your client to present all offers in a timely manner and give them fiduciary advice on those offers. Again, fiduciary means above all else, you have their interests at heart. You are telling them what you recommend and advise that's best for their situation.
And I know it's 11 o'clock, we have to confirm receipt of the offer, right?
We do. Yeah.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
reminder.
Well, I don't know if it's actually. I don't know if there's anything that says we have to confirm it.
We should
And
legally,
I always, and when I send an offer, I ask for confirmation.
I do always.
Because
ask
I want
that.
to make sure they got it. And if I'm sending like addendums with it, I make sure I say you have an offer to purchase plus a contingency on a house to sell addendum
Yeah.
plus an addendum. Make sure you see that. Or an escalation clause. Like I had a deal where I sent it to them and I put it in the email. They didn't see the escalation clause. And I said, well, did you see our escalation clause? And they were like, no. I said, I put it in the. So now after that, I make sure I send them the text also that says there is a contingent or a escalation clause as well.
I haven't been doing real estate full time, get back on the body, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
With everything out there.
I think confirming receipt you should do. I'm not sure if it's actually required, but I always say I got your offer, especially the ones I didn't know were coming. I'm like, hey, I got your offer. Is there anything you want to tell me about it?
It's gonna
But,
minimize liability.
yeah.
And
Get the offer to the seller in a timely manner as quickly as possible. I usually will review it, try to send it to them with a little summary, almost like I do to the other side. A summary of like, hey, here's the bullet points, here's the price, here's when you need to be out, blah blah blah. Here it is. Call me, we'll go over it. Call the buyer's agent, call the lenders, create any documents that need to be created for the lender. So just be compliant. Receipts. Create an offering command. So we'll talk about this. Command is what you're going to use to get paid. I know we talked a little bit about it. You start your opportunities. Am I going backwards? No.
Yes. No, maybe.
No, no. Okay. So we're now buyer is in negotiations. Let's see. Reach a decision. So at this point, you've so we kind of jumped ahead when we were going through the contract. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you were very informative too about the contract, so. it
Yeah.
Covered.
We probably covered a lot of this, yeah. So you presented an offer, you turned it out, let's see, we talked about that. This is just explaining what they are. Accept the offer. If the offer is reasonable, they may decide to accept it. Counter their offer, counsel them and your counter, what you would recommend, because a lot of times they're not going to know, well, what do you think we should counter? Give them advice. Remember, you can only tell the other parties what your seller has instructed you to disclose. For example, if the sellers reject an offer and are happy for you to tell the buyer's agent the terms they would accept, you can do that. You cannot tell the buyer's agent that information unless your seller has told you you could do that. So if they say we're not taking it because we want 245, they didn't say you can tell them that. You can't say they rejected your offer, they want 245. You're not allowed to do that. Even though you may want to, you can't do that.
Rejects the offer, do they often reject it with no counter? And they.
I say most counter, but yes, sometimes you will just get a straight rejection. Now, if that happens, like we said earlier, make sure you call and find out, well, why did you reject it?
Okay.
Most of the time, it's probably a price reason, but find out what the reason is. Like, was our offer too low? Was there a term you didn't like? Because even if they reject it, you can still submit another offer. Even though they didn't counter, you can still come back.
Okay.
Now, they could reject it again, but yes, you could always come back. Multiple offer situations. The same goes for multiple offer situations. Perhaps the seller likes one offer best and it comes with a closing date that is sooner than they would like. You can go to the buyer's agent and consult to see if the buyers would be willing to do a longer closing. If so, the agent can either alter their offer or go into a counter offer if they know their offer will be accepted. Of course, in a multiple offer situation, you can also call for the highest and best from all offers. So that's what I typically do. If I have an offer in hand and it's not been agreed upon, and I know somebody else is submitting one, at that point, I let everybody know we're now in multiple offer situations. Sellers would like you to bring your highest and best offer, and we're going to review at such and such time. So I set a deadline that I want your highest and best offer. And then at that point, like we were talking about, you review them, pros and cons, see which one's best. They still can counter one. You don't necessarily, just because they're bringing their highest and best, doesn't mean you have to take one. You can say, well, we like this one, it's higher, but we want a change in term, or we want more. You can still counter those.
Remember that time period that did that on all your listings?
I know, right?
You know?
Literally all of them. I had one.
Set with Excel spreadsheets.
Oh yeah, I had one that had 24 offers.
Oh
Yes.
my god.
I've had one.
24. Now I was able to weed out about 12 of those pretty quick because they were just way worse terms than the other ones. But yeah, it was just a ranch over in Garden Springs. Really nice 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Listed for like $220. It sold for $270.
So now it's.
That buyer waived appraisal and everything, didn't have to pay anything. That is not common now, so that was back in like 2021.
It was really major.
Yes,
house
and
shortage.
back when every house was selling in hours.
It
and
was,
multiple
it
offers.
was absolutely insane.
It was
I
insane.
wanna hear the story on that one sometime.
Oh, it was nuts. And
Yeah.
it wasn't anything special. It was just,
But your pricing.
yeah.
pricing
Oh, we did it on purpose. We
Yeah.
knew it was gonna be, so that house was probably would have priced for like 245-ish, 250.
Okay,
And we knew because it was a ranch and in a good area and it was super updated. I mean, it was phenomenal. Plus it was also in an area where there was a lot of residents who were going to UK. And that's
okay.
what my lady was a resident. We priced it
But see,
below.
me as the buyer's agent would be pissed off at you.
I know,
Priced it
I know.
at 220.
But that's
Just
what
my
we were-
buyer's
that's what
gonna-
everybody was doing
My
back
buyer's
then.
gonna go, well, I'll. 225.
Right.
Yeah,
I did not expect.
Okay,
I did not
just
expect to
like-
get 24 offers though. I thought we would get like 5, 6, something like that.
That's the strategy.
It was-
you need to
And then
go
it was
back
so
to-
it was so busy for showings. Like we were booked solid for 4 days.
Oh, I'm
we
sure.
had offers that were wanting us to go ahead and look at them, and I'm like, so I had to talk to them. I couldn't do
Yeah.
sellers. I'm like, what do you want to do? And they're like, let's let everybody look at it. So she basically went home to her parents' house and let everybody show up for 4 days, and then we reviewed offers. And it ended up being
See,
like,
that's bold. I'm not that ballsy.
yeah,
Good at
it was
doing
nuts. They were like her parents. Her mom was a realtor, so they knew the game too.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's substantially under one
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
In a regular market, that's not.
That's not normal.
no,
Yeah. I mean, you will still now run into some multiple offers. Like if a house in a hot neighborhood pops up, it's the right price.
If a property sells,
I know.
you up in it.
This is Coach Jay.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
it's- we're out.
We went through all the hards. Yeah, we're actually done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's
Sorry,
just
not
into this.
sexual.
No, we were just having fun. Yeah.
Poor Jesse.
The only thing we skipped was the daily success system. Oh, they'll do it. at home.
We have to go through the daily success system. We can, that's what we will go.
That's right.
Thank you so much for your